Right, I'm just going to do a quick little introduction. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who's come along today, and welcome if you're new to Jazzcord. I'm delighted to have the brilliant Patrick Bartley with us here today. If any of you somehow haven't heard about Patrick, which honestly would be quite impressive given how much everyone's been chatting about this event over the last couple of days, I honestly can't stress how lucky we are to have him for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to give a brief little introduction before we get on with things, and you can also just read this all in announcement. Patrick is an immensely talented player, and he's best known for founding the J Music Ensemble. He's also played with some absolutely huge names such as Wynton Marsalis, Lewis Hayes, Jonathan Batiste, Roy Hargrove, Mulgrew Miller, and Jeff Coffin. I'm also just going to briefly lay out the format of this Q&A. So I'm going to read as many questions as I can. I can't guarantee that they're all going to be read out, but I think there's kind of few enough that there's a decent chance that we'll get around to everyone. And also feel free to just raise your hand in the audience if you want to ask a question directly. And if any questions come to mind throughout the Q&A, just feel free to post them as well in the questions chat just throughout the course of it. I think that just about covers everything. So, Patrick, I would like to give you a warm welcome. I think I've just invited you to speak. I don't know if you have to do anything there. Welcome.
Yo, yes, I had to click accept.
Yeah, okay. Slightly unexpected. Technical difficulties. But yeah, hopefully that's the worst of it. Cool. So, I'm just going to hop straight into questions. So the first one that we were just testing out we were just messing about trying to get the stage working, but I think it seems like a appropriate enough one to start with. Simple enough. Do you like giant steps?
Yes.
Yes. I'm shocked.
Before I answer the questions, I want to say thank you for that really nice and very kind introduction, man. I appreciate it. It's nice being here. And I like that there's a community like this where kind of people of all ages and walks of life can come and just talk about jazz and learn about this stuff. So it's really cool that y'all have something like this going on here. So
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me here. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, I actually like Giant Steps, and I actually kind of think it's kind of a misunderstood tune a lot of the times. I was talking with a couple of my friends some years ago. It's been quite some time now. Kind of graduating high school, going into college. We were talking about, man, Giant Steps is a bebop tune. And it's like, yeah, it really is. It is a bebop tune. It's the melodic possibilities on that tune, I think, are a lot more vast than the harmonic leaps that people give to it. I think there's
in what sense then? Because I've always kind of seen it categorized as more of a hard bop tune.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, not necessarily genre, but the approach that you take to it. It's very evident in all the alternate takes that Train does on that album. If you check out that session, there's like actually one album that I found years ago on this service called Lala. It got shut down in like 2010 because it got bought out by Apple iTunes.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the precursor to like all this Spotify stuff where we had like web songs and downloadables. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I found like this entire collection of like 10 alternate takes or whatever.
Oh, that's really cool. Because I've only ever seen one.
Tempos. Yeah, you should definitely check out. I behoove everyone to check out the alternate takes of that because it's actually pretty eye-opening about different ways that you can approach that tune. So.
Oh, that's mad! I didn't even know that there were that many. But yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Another question. This is from Francis. When did you figure out that you wanted to be a musician?
Oh man, well I noticed Q&A is only like 45, 50 minutes or something like that. So I'm gonna have to try to condense this long story into something. As many times I've had to say this, let me see, I should be good enough at giving a succinct answer. Long story short, as short as I can give it, I wanted to be a visual artist first. I started off as a visual artist. I went to a performing arts, I went to an arts elementary school, middle school, and high school. I'm extremely grateful for that. All three of those schools were arts-based, and I wanted to do art at first because that's what caught my attention. And I was playing video games from an early age. I was drawing since I was like 5. I started taking formal art classes in elementary school. And then because we had the opportunity to do like more than one, like we had a major and minor, like quote unquote, in elementary school. So I was able to go at the, pick one that I really liked as my major and something else I wanted to do. Well, I didn't want the neighborhood kids seeing me dance, so I wasn't going to do dance. I didn't want to do musical theater or drama because, again, no offense to anyone who might be thespians about this, but I thought it was boring at the time. I understand it now, but I thought it was boring, didn't want to do it. And then there was strings. I was like, hey, I really like violin. This is really cool, but we spent the entire year just plucking and not even bowing, and so I was like, I want to play music now. So the only kind of like neutral thing that wasn't art or any of that kind of stuff was band. I was like, whatever, I'll just pick band. Just like, okay, just pick band. It's neutral. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool. And then after about a year, my band director at the time was just like, you're getting really good at this. You should switch. And I was like, can I still do art? He said, yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll switch. Like, as long as I can still have art at least as my minor. So switching from that ended up being such a fateful decision. I had no idea what kind of impact it would have on me because I started playing clarinet first.
Yeah.
Fun fact: this might answer somebody else's question.
It actually does, yeah.
But this might actually answer somebody's question about how I started playing. But that's the cool thing about all-in-ones, right? About this kind of free-form format. But I started playing clarinet because I originally wanted to play cornet. Random. I was just like, listen, I like to research instruments. And I was just like, I want to play cornet. Like, who the heck 8-year-old knows what a cornet is? I was just, whatever. They said it would take like, they don't even have any more trumpets because everyone wanted to play trumpet. It was such a popular instrument. So it would take like 2 to 3 weeks to order a trumpet. And if you want to play an instrument now, like, these are what we have. And then everybody in the front row, I had a couple of friends. This one guy named Lyndon. He was like, pick clarinet, pick clarinet. And I was like, all right, I'll pick clarinet. So it was like peer pressure. And that's how I ended up on clarinet.
It was just butterfly effect from there then.
It's so hilarious. I think about this a lot, actually, because it was from that point that, my band director was also a jazz saxophonist. So he started like teaching people at the school who were interested in being in the jazz band, like, hey, like, let's learn like Watermelon Man and stuff like that. So I was learning that melody by ear, and he was like, yo, I only knew 7 notes on the clarinet, but he knew that I could play those 7 notes. So he was just like, yeah, you should switch into this. You can learn more about music. And yeah, thank God for him, man, because he really like helped my mom. Because my mom was actually not too sure about what I was doing. She was very supportive in like the things that I was trying to do, as long as I was getting my grades. But the music thing, nobody was really sure about. It's not the typical story of like, oh, you shouldn't do music. It was just like, oh, like is that what you really want to do? You were doing art. Should you just switch? They wanted something consistent. And, he convinced everybody that was like the right thing for me to do. So I'm actually very happy about that. So without going into the rest of the history later on in my career, in my life, that's the shorthand of how I got started specifically with music. Like, that's how I actually got into it. And then everything else was just like a kind of a domino effect from there.
That's really cool. And just out of interest, do you still like keep at art to any degree or anything, or did that just kind of take the sideline a little bit?
Funny enough, like 8 years ago, I actually did my first and only album artwork for this band that I was in called XD7. It's not much, but it was something that I did. And then, but I am not as good as I was when I was a kid, which is funny to think about. But everything I do is visual. Again, without trying to answer another question that might come up. Yes, everything I do is basically visual. When I think about it, like, I also have synesthesia, so that contributes to it. But I'm colorblind, so it's kind of a weird thing to be paired up. But
so is it like a little bit of a kind of almost film music approach to things then?
Yeah, and I also do some film stuff as well. I mean, like, I'm extremely amateur. I'm not gonna purport to be any kind of a film buff or whatever, but I do like shooting with semi-professional cameras. Like my main camera that I use for streaming is a Sony Alpha 6400, which is a kind of a mid-range mirrorless camera that's really good. You can still use interchangeable lenses, and it has really good autofocus. I love the Sony cameras. So I kind of took to that, and to kind of keep some aspect of a visual artistic element in my life. And when I was still living in New York, because I live in Florida now, when I was still living in New York, I was actually occasionally doing video work, filming and editing for people on the side, kind of just trying to hustle when the gigs were low. And there's a couple of videos online that you could probably see. But yeah, I try to keep some sort of visual element alive within me because that's really important to me.
Yeah. I'm going to stop taking up time asking questions now because I think I've already asked about 3 now.
Okay.
The
I'm
next
cool to go.
question.
I'm cool to go as long as y'all want to. If it ends up going over,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that because it might well end up doing so. Because I didn't want to run out of questions too early, but I don't think there's any chance of that happening.
Nah.
So the next one is from, I think it's Chris ISX427. What advice would you give to someone who wants to go to college for music? They say they want to go for music. And they want to make it their career, but they don't know how they would make money. And another user called Myron also responded, kind of suggesting music production as a good way to balance the financial aspect of that.
Well, funny thing about financial aspect is that, I mean, so financial aspect is kind of a broad term, kind of a broad thing to talk about, because you can make anything financially work if you're good at it enough and if you work hard at it. Because otherwise, if you just take those things at face value, they don't inherently make you any money. Like you don't go into this business, into this world. I don't even want to say business because, like, yes, you do go into business to make money. You don't go into this career path to make money. Like, that's not. If you do, you're going to be kind of going after things for the wrong reasons. Because at the end of the day, even though we talk a lot about I know this has nothing to do with college right now, but maybe it'll help your decision making process. But a lot of the times you like to think of music in the sense of, oh, you gotta market yourself, and you gotta think about this, you gotta learn the tricks of the trade, and you gotta learn how to network. It's like, yeah, you gotta do all those things. But you have to have something to network. You have to have something to advertise.
You can't forget the foundation.
Yeah, so if you don't have, it's like, yeah, it's important for everyone to learn. I think this more applies to people who kind of already have kind of the music thing going for them, like, and they have to understand how to market your music and this kind of stuff. A lot of music schools don't teach that. I think that's starting to change now, because when I was in college, it was first really becoming a thing. But I think it's really changing now, which is good. But I think people have to remember that this is a labor of love first, right? It's a passion. Like, if you are not thinking about music for music's sake, then you're going to crash and fail, because this is, like, the arts is the most competitive industry. It's very relentless. I wouldn't say it's as competitive as, like, housing, but it's definitely competitive in its own way, because I guess I shouldn't say housing, I should say real estate. This is just housing, but yeah, it's extremely competitive. As much as we don't want to make it that way, it is, because you're competing for the attention and the money of, like, an audience. So I think the best thing you can do is to have a seamless connection between your the art that you want to create and the image that you want behind it. Like, you want to be able to have something clear that you want to show people. So where that goes into college is, I think the thing that you pick to do in college, I think no matter what you pick, like, you're always going to have that in your belt, because that's the problem with degrees for music. A degree in music doesn't actually give you anything except the ability to, like, teach, right? Like, no matter what you do, even a degree in, like, music production, maybe a degree in music production maybe looks better when you're trying to get hired somewhere. I don't know, like I don't know. I don't even think that really helps you as much, but I'm not going to speak on that. But I know specifically for performing and composing, because that's my field. A music degree doesn't help you do anything. You go to school to, you go to those schools specific for music to learn more about how to play, how to interact with other people, and to meet other people, and to get interlocked or interwoven within the scene that you want to be in. That's really what you go to music school for. That's like the, or just a state college or city, college, whatever, for music as a major. Either way, that's really what you want to do with your time at music school. So in terms of, like, career path and making money, that's stuff you're gonna have to learn outside of school. Like, I like using school as, like, an opportunity to, like, I don't know, depending on your situation, seamless, not seamlessly, what's the word? Essentially, or virtually, that's a better word. To live virtually rent-free, in low risk, right? A low risk way, a time of low risk. I can't even talk right now. A time of low risk where you can explore different patterns and different, marketing techniques, different relationship building advice. You can kind of use that time to practice those things, and that's what I think college is really the best place for.
Yeah, you're allowed to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, you can experiment. It's a very long-winded way of saying you can experiment, right, for free. But not really for free, because like, of course, you're paying for college. It's not really free. But my point is that like there's still a lot of securities with being a student that you don't have once you're not a student anymore. So it's like it's a good way to kind of practice that. And a lot of people in school end up saying the first thing to say is, "Oh, my biggest regret in college was not taking advantage of like the ability to network and meet people or whatever." It's like, because like especially if in this world where like it's more common to be more antisocial because of the internet, because of more mononucleic households, where instead of living in a neighborhood, you're living more in like a, instead of living in a community, you're living in more a neighborhood, or living like kind of isolated from people. And it's like, so it's harder to be social a lot, which I understand, and a lot of people have social anxiety, but then they graduate college and just like, I didn't take advantage of this time and these resources to do this type of thing, because that's really the time you take to do that, right, is in college. So I wouldn't worry too much about the financial aspect of it, because even if you're the best player in the school, your best player in the state, best player in the country, whatever, there's no guarantee that you're going to make money just because you went to school. Like, it's not. That's not a guarantee, and people won't tell you that. Schools will not tell you that, because the reason why schools will tell you that is because they want you to go to their school.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, they want you to go. They're not going to tell you, hey, going to the school does not guarantee that you won't make money. Like, they're not going to tell you that. I mean, I went to Manhattan School of Music. It's a conservatory for music, and even that's not guaranteed to make you any kind of music. You have to use the resources that the school offers at your disposal in order to do anything.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be using those resources, then you want to take that time to kind of figure out yourself, figure out what it is that you want to do. Even if you don't have, I'm not saying you're going to go to college and by the time you graduate, like, I don't know, if you're 18, right, and you go to college straight out of high school, you graduate at 22, all right, bam, I got everything in place. Like, no, it's not going to be that way. You're going to take some time, right? It's going to take some time for you to figure things out. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out that this is the thing that I wanted to actually start doing, what I'm doing right now in terms of J music, because I was struggling for years, even out of school. Like, am I gonna, J music's losing me money because it's like, nobody knows about it. So I'm like, I'm paying money out of my pocket for these gigs. We're making like $10 each, sometimes $10 total for the band. I got to pay everybody out of pocket for this shit. Like, it's just like, sometimes it gets kind of crazy. And then on the other hand, I'm doing this jazz thing and that's being successful, but I'm not feeling fulfilled. Like, I'm feeling pigeonholed, typecast. Like, what am I going to do? Like, it took a lot of time, even after school, while I was like making money from here and there just to make ends meet, to figure stuff out. But what I did in school is I met a lot of people that would get me those gigs, get me work later on, and also people I can call for my own stuff. You want to spend all that time networking no matter what you want to do. So I think it's less about, hey, will this thing make me money, and more about how can I use where I go and the career and the major that I pick to kind of further give me as much opportunity to explore, free roam, develop myself as possible. That's what you want to choose. So if music, if the idea of performing and you look at the curriculum, you talk to some former students there, how the school is, if the performing thing is good for you, go ahead and do that. If music production, like, yeah, you say, oh, going into music production is good for, again, not to knock whoever said that, like, I'm at all, like, yeah, sure, I think that's from a purely practical standpoint in the modern world, yes, that is probably going to offer you the most type of work immediately, is that. But again, like, there's so many different producers out there as well because of that very fact, so it's still going to be competitive, right? You got to have something to show for it. So I think no matter what, you got to think, what do you enjoy doing the most? Like, you have to do that, because
nothing's easy
about the arts. Yeah, you gotta pick what you enjoy the most, and if that sticks out to you, then stick with that, because otherwise, if you're just chasing the money, the money's gonna chase you, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's gonna catch up with you that you're just just trying to chase the money. So I think you should do things with respect to music, just how you want to do it. Just don't think you don't have to think any deeper than that, really, because you can learn music production after you spend 4 years on a music performance degree, and you can learn how to you can perform. You can just go and get a gig. You can learn how to perform. So most of the time, music schools don't even teach you how to perform. I'm saying this as a person who went to music school. They teach you how to play changes, but they don't always teach you how to perform. There's so many people coming out of college don't know how to speak on the mic, so you don't even have to go to school for that. So you see how, like, there's how many different opportunities and different avenues you can go down with this degree choice. That's why you just got to pick what you like, and then you can go from there, because either way, you're gonna have to find out for yourself what that means for you anyway.
Yeah, that actually really nicely answers another question that we just got from T Clock, which is what is one thing you think every music student should know before they graduate? And I think you've just kind of given us a million there.
Sure,
So
yeah.
thanks for that. Got another question from Flair here, because Ben kind of gave a couple of, I guess, alluded to your thoughts on a couple of different players, because he's a big fan of yours. And Flair here said, what do you think of Eric Marienthal's playing, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, with the Big Fat Band? And do you enjoy this kind of less still, or is it mostly his solo work which you're not so into?
Well, it's kind of interesting to answer this question because I don't know how much publicity this is going to get. And
yeah, like if you don't want to kind of chat about your peers,
well, I have a lot of respect.
Like, feel free.
I have a lot of respect for Eric as a player. I think he has a great sound. I do have a lot of respect for him, so I'm going to say that positively. I'm not.
Yeah, I really don't want to put you in an awkward position or anything.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, and if he hears this, that's okay. It's fine. But I don't just to know that I do have a lot of tremendous respect for him as a player. But I just personally am not the biggest fan of his playing, and that's not to say that I don't think he's good. It's just that we all have tastes and preferences, and there's a lot of people that I know personally also that don't like the way I play. So I think that's totally fair and honest, and I think people shouldn't get mad at that, but. That's my take on it. So I don't want to really speak too much more on that.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't blame you.
If this was more private and not recorded, like I probably would say a little bit more.
So I was kind of reading that out there, thinking, God, that sounds a little bit worse than it did in my head.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, well, we'll move on to his second question.
But thank you, though. I appreciate it.
His second one was, what's your favorite Train album? A little bit simpler.
Oh man, it's extremely hard. Okay, so. Man, so I've spent so much time in my life, like from high school to now, basically consuming as much Coltrane as I possibly can because he was a big influence on my life. Even as an alto player, it doesn't matter like what instrument I play. It's just him and his spirit. Also, Coltrane is definitely an alto player at heart. He started on alto anyway.
Yeah, I heard the recordings.
Y'all have a channel here called Hot Take House. So I'm gonna go in there and post Coltrane as an alto player. See how much downvotes I get or whatever. No, it's hard to say. I guess if I were to say what my Bible is, my Coltrane Bible is the 1961 Vanguard sessions. Those 4 nights, the 4-disc set.
Nice.
That's probably my Bible. Even though I like all the I've ran the gamut. Most of my sound, like if I'm really getting into something and I'm really getting to like a certain vibe, I'll start going into like 1966 Live in Japan Train because that's like that Peace on Earth recording changed my life when I heard it. I heard it when I was a senior in high school, and that was like a really life-changing moment for me, was hearing Peace on Earth. That whole concert is ridiculous, but a lot of Late Train like is not for everybody. I don't think it's like something. I think it's not something that people should force themselves to listen to, and 2, I don't think it's something that people should just readily knock or call it BS. Like I think it's on either side of the spectrum, just a part of Coltrane's exploration, and he is just a person. He is human, so he's not always gonna make stuff that people likes. That's not. He wasn't in the business of doing that. He was in the business of exploring himself, and I learned a lot from that, and like his ability to be allowed to do that. And I think the reason why he did what he did in Japan is because Japan loves that, and they love the expression. They love them so much. But I would say that it's a hard toss up. But I think, yeah, man, I love all of his live stuff with the classic quartet. Just it's such a cathartic experience, and it also is a real lesson in like how to command such a force with a lot of intelligence at the same time. It's like really really cool, but also Train is, for lack of a better term, country as hell. He came from I don't remember if it was South Carolina or North Carolina, but either way he was country, and he left there when he was 17 to go to Philly. So he was actually a Southern boy for the majority of his formative years, and so everything he does has the blues and soul and roots music in it. So a lot of people listen to Train and they're just like, oh yeah, it's like they listen to all, they don't pay attention to the less obvious part. That's an extremely like Southern American experience, which is like the blues. And that's something that if you listen to 1954 Coltrane with Johnny Hodges in the dance band, he's playing freaking jump blues on Castle Rock. That's 10 years later. Just 10 years later, he made a Love Supreme. So that'll tell you a lot about like where he's coming from and what is in his head. So I really like 61 Vanguard because that's like the freshest period of time that Coltrane, I think, finally got to play with a band that is willing to explore the things that he's trying to explore. Because it's one of the reasons why, like, I'm gonna just say it right now. I'm not the biggest fan of like Train between like 58 and 59, like even 60 or whatever. I'm not actually the biggest fan of a lot of that stuff. And the main reason is because a lot of it sounds like he's still trying to get to something. A lot of people just like, man, like these harmonies and the chords, it's all crazy. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but
Yeah.
I grew up with the blues, and that's the kind of thing that I go to first. And I think everything else is like an offshoot of his exploration of that. Even the harmonic stuff, I think he's searching for, like, he said it in an interview. He said he's trying to like search for the most beautiful sound or something, right? That's what he said in his interview. There's a couple of good interviews from him, and the one in 1966 in Japan is actually a really cool interview. Him talking about that. He even talks about the Vietnam War, which is kind of ridiculous, but which is kind of a crazy thing to experience. But
I think I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. It's really interesting. But no, he's like him searching for the most beautiful, searching for the one essential. He says in the 61 interview, he's searching for the one essential. But I think in 66 he talks about playing the most beautiful sound, and I think that's really important because I really feel like in those Vanguard sessions, that was like, whoa, like we're just meeting. This is the first time you start to hear this new thing happening, and I think there's a lot in there that I've kind of taken into myself about how to play with a rhythm section, how to formulate your ideas, develop, and just playing. It's just a really interesting lesson for me, and that's why I listen to those recordings so much. It just feels good for me to listen to. It also just, the recording quality is just great. It's rare to hear that band with that kind of sound quality because most of the stuff where they're playing live like that is done with like the live recording techniques at the time, which of course were not always the best. But those European tours are also some. So just to sum it up, it's not really just one album. If I were to say one, it probably would be like the Vanguard sessions. But I think in general, between 61 and 65 is like my favorite period of Coltrane.
Cool. Kind of leading on from what you're saying about the rhythm section then, and kind of how they sort of linked up with each other. What do you look for in a good rhythm section? Asks Charlie.
That's a good question. I actually do. I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I think it's a good idea to have an idea of what you want from the rhythm section in your head, even if you can't describe it. Because I'm having a hard time like really describing. Because I think if you asked me this question 5 or 6 years ago, not probably longer than that. If you asked me this question like 8 years ago when I was in school, like I probably would have been able to give you like some kind of clear, like, oh, I want this and this and this. Now it's become a little more abstract as a combination of a bunch of things, but I'm gonna try to put them as succinctly and clearly as possible. I guess the first thing, being able to listen and respond is extremely important, and that's a very broad term. It sounds very kind of almost tongue-in-cheek in a way, right? Like, you know, just being able to listen, being able to respond, or like, it seems very vague, but having it's a life skill. It's a communication skill. Imagine you're talking to somebody, right, and you're just like, man, this apples really taste good, and the first thing they say is like, yeah, man, the Saints game was awesome.
Yeah,
huh?
It's really hard to quantify.
It's like, what? It's like, you gotta have the right, say, oh man, that apple tasted awesome. You'd be like, oh yeah, man, what kind of apple was it? Like, it's that kind of thing, right? And if you have the experience of speaking in certain social situations, you know exactly how to respond. And so for me, I like being able to play with the rhythm section who can kind of pick up the things that I'm, you picking up the things that I'm putting out, putting down. And that's basically what I look for in a broad sense. But a lot of that comes from just like the context of what I'm playing in. And the reason why I use such a broad term is because I pick people to play with based on the type of music I want to play at that moment. I don't have just one group of people that I play everything with. That's kind of crazy. That's a dream. But at the same time, I realize that that's not what I'm after. I don't think that's really possible because the kind of music I'm into is so broad, and it transcends a bunch of different genres, So it's like, for example, like J Music Pocket Band is a really good example I'll use, because there are certain tunes like, I have a bunch of drummers and I have a bunch of bass players that'll call for different situations. If I'm looking for one specific sound, like I want something kind of more rockin', upbeat, more aggressive, I'm gonna call Norman. My brother from another mother, basically. I'm calling Norman. If I want something a little more sensitive but more kind of on the swinging side, more traditional jazz, I'll call Ben Zweig. because I've been playing with him for 10 years now in that way. Same thing with bass. You know, if I'm looking for something that's more kind of maybe lower action, still digging in, but lower action, kind of more notes, kind of more almost electric to upright kind of thing, I'll call Wallace. If I'm looking for like a wider beat and kind of like more varied note approaches, I'll probably call Matt Muntz. You know, I'm thinking about different strengths that my friends can do. That's the other thing, is that I'm only calling my friends. I'm not, I've played with such and such and these people before, but I want to call people I can rehearse with. I need to be, no matter how good I know the person is, I have to rehearse with them, like all the time. Like I just have to, because we need to understand that we're on the same page, so we can get to like the same level of music. Unless we've quite literally been playing for years, like, you know, like Russell, like we went to school together. You know, I remember when he first got to America from Jamaica. Like, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like we grew up together basically, Russell Hall and I. And then Emmett, you know, again, he's from Miami, but we really met at MSM. So in terms of like the Emmett Cohen thing, I can just go over there and whatever. We've been playing for so long, but for other musicians and other type of specific music, I am looking for what you can do. And if I know what you can do, I'm going to call you based on that. Because I'm not going to call someone who specializes in Joe Henderson music to play Louis Armstrong music. And vice versa. You know, I'm not going to do that. So it doesn't really matter how good the person is. I'm looking for very specific things that they can do. So I guess to kind of break it down and give more even specific examples. When it comes to swinging, yeah, I don't know, man. I said I was going to try to get something specific, but I can't really give it because I'm into a lot of different types of music, and I can play a lot of different types of music, and I've become more aware of that across the years. Sometimes I want to play trad, you know. Sometimes I want to play, you know, Frankie Trumbauer, Louis Armstrong, Bix Beiderbecke, Jelly Roll Morton type stuff. So I'm gonna go to that scene and pick those guys. You know, sometimes I want to play Charlie Parker or bebop, so I'm gonna go to the scene and, you know, call the cats that can play like that. Or I want more trained classic quartets, so I'm gonna call those cats. Or like I want straight up modern jazz, you know, like Kenny Garrett or Brad Mehldau or something. If I'm looking at those types of things, then I'm gonna call the cats who can do that. Which means that there's a certain type of musical language that you speak that will allow you to kind of look at that'll kind of like allow you to look at the music being presented and respond accordingly. Yeah, you know, like if it's like being multilingual in a way, you know, if you or not even multilingual, it's like code switching basically, you know, for any of my, you know, brothers in the chat. But it basically is kind of just like, yeah, it's like code switching, you know, like you can speak one thing, you talk one way to your mom, you talk one way to your friends, you talk one way to your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you talk one way to, you know, like you have all these different ways that you talk basically. And I look for people who are just able to kind of just respond to what I'm doing, which requires you to listen to a lot of music. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't get any more specific than that.
Oh my god, man, that was brilliant. Honestly, I'm loving these responses. But yeah, that was actually super in depth. No, so thank you for that. Let me find another one. It doesn't really lead on that much from it, I guess. But I guess with broadness of listening or breadth of listening, SR3323 asks, what's your favourite non-jazz album?
Oh my gosh, my favorite non-jazz album. Oh my god, that's very difficult. Not because I don't listen, but because I listen to so much non-jazz. Oh my god. Now I gotta really. I don't have favorites. It's really hard to be put on the spot like this because I can only answer with like the thing that I probably will listen to the most. So I can probably consider that to be my favorite, but my mood ended up changing a lot. Yeah. I have to let me quickly go through my music folder on my computer and see whatever album jumps out to me first. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the one. Yeah. This is quite difficult. I'm gonna have to go probably into my J music stuff because there are certain albums that really changed my life from, you know, as most people probably know, again, like in the Japanese music side of things. I grew up playing video games and watching anime and Toonami back in the 90s and 2000s, and then, you know, discovered J-pop like proper throughout college. It's hard. My favorite ever. Oh my god, I don't want to.
It's quite a big question, isn't it? I keep asking these thinking that they're really easy, and then you give me like a 10-minute response, which is really cool, but...
The easiest questions are always the most specific. The hardest questions are always the most simple or broad, you know? Because they require me to, like, shut out other... It requires me to give an absolutism. And the way I think about life is very inclusive and not absolute, so...
Yeah.
So it's like, if I were to pick... Dang, it really is a toss-up between a Sasakure.uk album and a School Food Punishment album. I don't know which one to pick. It's all right. I'll have to give like two. I can't really give one. This kind of sucks. Um, Dang. Oh, this is so hard. It's a toss-up really between School Food Punishment's Amp Reflection. They're a Japanese prog rock band that was like they really opened my eyes into like what music meant to me, like on a deep level outside of just any kind of harmonic, melodic, or rhythmic structure. It made me like that really, because just the textures, everything, it opened me to the way Japanese musicians think about music in general, and I think that really affected me in how I play and how I think. So it's like that, and then the genius composer, like one of my all-time heroes, Sasakure .uk, and that album, The Fantastic Reality of Aesop, is a near perfect album to me, just because of the music, the compositions, and the fact that he draws the storyboard and makes his videos before he composes for like most of his music that has videos in it. It's just really I relate to that. Once I looked at I looked at an interview of his and realized that he did that, I was like, oh my god, somebody is.
It's the whole synesthetic approach, kind of.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk with Sasakure about if he's synesthete or not. But I did get the chance to finally record with him last year, and I felt like at that point I could just die happy. I'm fine. I don't have to do anything anymore. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to ask him about that. Maybe I can ask his manager if he knows. But yeah, he's one of my all-time heroes, and I really like that album specifically, The Fantastic Reality of Aesop. So it's a toss-up between that and Amp Reflection from School Food Punishment. I really don't know.
Yeah. I'm going through all these questions now, and half of them are like, what's your favourite something? And I thought they'd be really good, and now I'm kind of panicking because I don't want to put you on the spot.
It depends. It depends. Like, if it's music related, what's my favorite? That's the most difficult thing, because they all exist in kind of the same space in my head.
Yeah.
So but otherwise, like, it should be easy.
Okay. Here's one from Kruger. What's your favorite anime, and which song? This is kind of a different one. Which song would you like to cover in the future? But yeah, what's your favorite anime?
Dragon Ball Z.
Nice.
Easiest question of all.
Nice. Okay, cool.
But there are some contenders. But Dragon Ball Z, absolute. Because I grew up with that, changed my life. I'm pretty sure most of us who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z when it first came to the States in like '99 didn't even realize it was an anime. We just thought it was a cartoon, like that was so much different than the rest. But I've watched Dragon Ball Z in its entirety at least 10 times, like from start to finish.
That's mad.
There's so much life and storytelling in that. But there are a lot of other good anime that I've liked and watched over the years. But it's hard for me to recall them right now for the sake of time.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is another. Okay, I'm going to ask you this one just because I don't think there's that many to choose from. You're definitely going to prove me wrong here. Hev asks, who's your favourite trombonist of all time? And, Curtis Emptier then continues, and why is it Curtis Fuller?
Curtis Emptier, that's ridiculous. That's like Kilometers Davis, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Favorite trombonist? Holy crap, dude. Oh my god, what a hard question. I really wanted to play trombone at a certain point in time, because I was like, man, if I knew how to play trombone, I'd just play the blues all day, because you could just slide around. It seems so fun. But I like keys on an instrument. I don't know if I could just memorize all those positions and get to envy all trombone players. Definitely big ups to you for being able to play the instrument. Gosh, man. Honestly, bro, he's like one of my bros right now. He's one of my really good friends. I love Corey Wilcox, man. Like, I guess I wouldn't like listen to him all the time. Like, not my favorite trombone player to listen to, but definitely my favorite trombone player to play with. I think he's ridiculous. I think he's gonna, if he plays his cards right, he can take over the world, because he was actually gonna be on the Metagroove album, the Persona album that we released, but I had his wrong number, like an old phone number, so he couldn't make the session. So we had to like make an on-the-spot decision to play a different song. So it was
really kind of down to the wire.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. We had other songs, like we did 16 Persona arrangements and we put 13 on the album. So it was a matter of just replacing one with the other. But yeah, we were gonna have him featured on one of the songs, and I was like, people aren't ready to hear this. And that was the second time that happened. There was one time I was trying to call him for a gig like 3 years ago to play on that very song. He couldn't make it, and then it was this time like, all right, we're definitely gonna do it now. He couldn't make it, so I was just like, dang, I guess no one's ever gonna hear this. So yeah, contemporary, yeah, definitely Corey Wilcox, no contest. But otherwise, like in history, that's a hard toss. I gotta give 3 of them. It's like I love me some Al Gray. I don't know any other trombone player I can really just sit down and listen to more than Al Gray. I love Al Gray just because he just played the blues and he swings way too freaking hard. I do like Curtis Fuller, but I wouldn't really put him like in that same spot for me. Definitely Al Gray. Definitely JJ. I mean, how can you not like JJ Johnson? And basically every trombone player in the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra, man, I don't know, man. They're just ridiculous. and they're all kind of like either my uncles or big brothers, what it feels like too. Sometimes like I love Vince, I love Elliot, I love Chris Crenshaw. I love all those guys, man. They're really, really fun. And then I guess also like really old school trombone players like Tricky Sam Nanton and Kid Ory. So those are my answers.
Cool. Got another question here. This is definitely going to be a long one, but it does kind of lead from that.
Let's see.
How did the J Music Ensemble meet? That is quite broad.
I can give a short answer.
Oh, okay.
As short as I can possibly give. Basically, so there was a band that I was in that started my freshman year with a trombone player named John Hadamiya, also one of my favorite trombone players. I love John. Called XD7. And it was the first like band that I was a part of, and we did tours. I wrote a few compositions for them, but it was mostly John's compositions. And I wanted because you can do school combos, right? At MSM or whatever, you can do like, you have your own combo that you play with and rehearse for the year, and then it changes every year. You get to pick who's in it. I was put in a random combo my first year with people I didn't know, and even though it was cool meeting them, it kind of was a slightly miserable experience at times. Even though a lot of them are my good friends now, we were just young and just exploring stuff out. It just wasn't really the right fit at the time, but it was a learning experience. Second year, I did get to choose to be in a group with my friends, but it was like, I was going through some musical transformations at the time, and one of them was like going back to my old video game songs that I used to play. The old video games I used to play and listening to that music, like Super Hang On and Sonic Adventure 2, and just like really being like, man, these soundtracks are ridiculous. Like I got to do something. So I started transcribing some of the solos from like Super Hang On, because Super Hang On allowed you to pick your track before you raced. Like you picked your bike. It was a motorcycle racing game. You picked your bike, you picked the stage, then you picked the track that played in the background. And there were synth solos if you're able to get good enough and race long enough to hear those synth solos in the tracks. And it kind of just blew my mind, and I wanted to transcribe. So I transcribed one song, Outrider Crisis. And I transcribed it for the acoustic, like an acoustic jazz sextet, basically like a Art Blakey jazz messages kind of thing. No guitar, no electric bass, no nothing. It was just, it was alto, tenor, trombone, piano, upright bass, and drums. And we played some video game music. And so that was my first kind of taste of like, okay, like there's something here, but it's not quite what I'm looking for. I was like, maybe I can play some of this music with XD7, because we had like electric guitar, electric bass, and keyboard. But also alto, tenor, trombone. So I want to use that same instrumentation at school. So I said, hey, for my junior year, like I asked XE7, hey, anybody, y'all want to come and play in this we can make a combo for XE7. Half of the band didn't really want to do that. Well, no, 2 of them really didn't want to do that, but 2 of them were graduating already. And then one of them left the school. And then the only people that were left that were interested was the bass player Max Calkin and John Hadamiya. They were like the only ones that were willing to be in that group. So I was like, I got to kind of build this from scratch and figure out what happens. And so I just found a bunch of other guys at the time. And Kyle Athade was another one, because I talked to him originally, like, hey, we're going to start like a kind of a Japanese and video game music band at school. And so Kyle Athade, if anybody doesn't know him, also goes by Diz Kid Boogie. He's an Ice Climbers player in Melee. He's known for tilting. He's in every tilted like Melee, like Salty Smash compilation, because he tilts people. Most notably tilting None from Wobbling. But if anybody's a Melee head in Smash. But yeah, he's also an incredible musician. But the band didn't really work out that well, because it was like, it was a collective and not really under my leadership, which again, and inherently in and of itself is not a bad thing. The problem is that the idea and the topic, what's the word? The idea and the mission that I wanted to, or the message, there we go. The idea and the message that I wanted to specifically do like all Japanese music, not just video games, wasn't clear. And other people in it basically just want to play video game music, and I wanted to do more than that. I got really influenced by Sasakure. I got really influenced. That was a summer I discovered him. I got really influenced by School Food. I got really influenced by so many different types of people. So after that year went by and I got really depressed, I was almost thinking about canceling the band, like just not doing it anymore. And as I said, I just threw out a message on Facebook, hey, if anybody wants to sing with this band, just let me know. Otherwise, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then I got some responses from people who actually want to sing with us. So I started like, all right, let me just look for new musicians. And then basically the musicians that you see now, not all of them, like who's there from the original band? It's me, Chris Williams, Max Boyko. I think those are the only original members that survived. Oh my god, that sounds so dark. Like that stayed, because a lot of them couldn't live in New York anymore because it's too freaking expensive, and understandably the band wasn't doing that much. But so, and then other people I had to either fire or they left. It was a lot of drama. We're not gonna get into that, but basically that second iteration of the band is how we got to what it is right now, because since everybody else was leaving and graduated from the school, I could now step in and be like, hey, here's the direction. Everybody already had a year to see what the band was all about. We packed every student jazz concert. We had the most attendance basically for any independently student-run thing, because everybody wants to hear video game music. It's cool. And it was also because we had very popular musicians. Like some of the original musicians you probably already know, like Leo P. Like Leo. We used to not call him Leo P. It was just Leo. But Leo Pellegrino was in the original band because me and him were boys back in school. We both did Afro-Cuban jazz ensemble with Bobby Sanabria when we were there. We were both nominated for the same Grammy on the same album, which was like also a pretty cool thing that happened. But he was in the band originally, so we had some cool cats in there, but they all had left. And so I could finally kind of take charge in the direction that I wanted to go in with the band, and that's when my senior year is when this current iteration of kind of wanting to explore playing Japanese vocal melodies or Japanese electronic stuff with live instrumentals came about, and that's how the sound happened, was that second year. So it was all out of School of Music. I know I said it would be short, but believe me when I say that it's actually the shortest version of the answer I can give.
Cool. We got another question now from Gumball, who has raised their hand. Sorry, I don't know how long they've actually had their hand raised. I've only just checked it.
Oh, wow. It's kind of like Twitter Spaces, I think. Yeah, but welcome,
Gumball, first live speaker. Hang on. Yeah, you still have to accept. Or maybe... Oh, welcome to the stage. What is your question?
All right. So, who is your biggest influence to this day?
See, that's the kind of question that's hard for me to answer. Now we're getting to the difficult.
Like, if it's multiple, it's fine.
Okay. Do you mean? So when you say influential, did you mean musician? Do you mean non-musician, or do you mean in general?
Musician.
Okay. Whew, Lord have mercy. One of the people that changed my life and is actually one of the nicest guys in the world. I'm very grateful for him, and when I finally got to meet him, I kind of fangirled and kind of cried a little bit. Steve Lehman is actually one of my favorite people and players of all time. He was, for the longest time, and almost kind of still feel this way. I was like, man, this Steve Lehman is kind of the most original alto player. What the heck? It's so funny because he's very simple in the way he thinks about it. He studied with Jackie McLean when he was at the Hart School, and he also, when at Columbia, studied with another French composer. I forgot his name, who taught him about microtones and Messiaen modes and all that kind of stuff. That's how he knows he came up with a microtonal saxophone fingering system. But if you check out any of his stuff, you'll just realize just how ridiculous he is. But even though I don't personally play like that really anymore, I was extremely inspired by him, and every single time he was kind of an inspiration for me to be different in what I did. So it's kind of like a living idol. I really appreciated Steve, and I still to this day really do. He's very nice.
Okay.
So also, I mean, dude, all the big saxophone players in history, Bird, Train, definitely Coltrane and Cannonball more than any of them for sure. And then other than that, man, oh my goodness, musicians. Sasakure.uk, as I said before, is my favorite composer. Almost I dare say my favorite composer of all time. just because of how his music really deeply affects me, as like a visual person, and also just it's really grooving and harmonically interesting and rhythmically and melodically interesting. Tons of development. These kind of questions at the spot are always difficult because you know, I have to.
I know.
I gotta think about like, oh man, I wasn't prepared for this, but and also I'm always I think it's also because I'm always afraid of kind of not giving all of the right answer that I want, but you know, I could always go back. So those are the people that come to my mind musician wise. I guess also like I don't really want. I mean, Yasutaka Nakata is great, but I wouldn't say he's been like the biggest factors. Definitely more like Sasakure, Cannonball, Train. Brad Mehldau is I cannot stress enough Brad. Yeah, if I don't mention Brad Mehldau and Roy Hargrove, I'll be very remiss. So, yeah, Roy Hargrove and Brad Mehldau. So those people were like some of my biggest, because from Roy I learned about how to play a melody. I learned how to really just be myself and not focus too much on all the stuff that don't matter. And Brad Mehldau is just such an incredible piano player that it sounds like the piano is singing when I listen and play. And it's like really flowing, and I love his compositions because Highway Rider, I had a download of Highway Rider from a friend to like, you know, shared hard drives and stuff like that, and I never saw the album cover, I never saw anything, liners, whatever. I was like, man, this sounds like it's a movie. Like I can see that there's a story being told with this music right now. And lo and behold, I went and researched and was like, oh, it is. So I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And so he was another inspiration for me for that. So, yeah, those are my not simple, not one person answers. So.
Cheers for that, Gumball. We got another one now. Oh my god, I feel like a radio host or something. Okay, second caller.
Incredibly.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm very new to this. So we got ZEK. You're gonna have to hit accept. Welcome.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I don't know why I read it's the spaces. Oh my god, I'm tired.
Well, yeah, that's why that's unreasonable, but so sick.
I might have to change my voice settings. One sec. There we go.
I still love the shoe.
All right.
I'm very big fan.
Yeah, the Shabu Duck. But I was just gonna ask, like, my network right now is sort of like, as for a gigging musician, it's like I know a lot of people who know people, but I want to be that person who like is in the know. Like, what do you recommend? Like, especially because I'm living near the city now. Like, what do you recommend I do to like get out there?
So this is gonna sound very blunt and harsh, but this is a general thing. It's not directed towards you or anybody, because again, I don't really know what any of y'all do, so I'm not. It wouldn't even be a thing or attack anything. But in order to be somebody that people know, you have to have something worth knowing. You know,
yeah,
like, that's
definitely.
the first and foremost, and that's what I was. The question I was answering as well, like when somebody was like, I think it was the first question or second, about the music school thing, like what should you do, what should I go into with regards to like money or financial whatever. It's like you got to have the thing first, and I think a lot of people overlook that. There are a lot of people that are really good at the business side of it, but we all know some of them people should not be having the following they have. Like we know, and there's a reason why it's not that big anyway, right? Like they're just moderately. They're really, you know, to put it kind of bluntly and be kind of harsh. They're popular with like the 40, 50 and up kind of just nice parent crowd, you know what I'm saying, like who don't really know that much about music, but they don't really have the audience of people who are really in the know about it, and you don't really want that happening, you know, like I think you obviously you want success, but I think having integrity is a better success than monetary success, in my opinion. So I think like if you want to be that person that people are calling and that people know, like you got to really kind of figure out what you're good at and kind of try to amplify that. You know what I mean? Like you have to figure out you got to figure out what your skill set is and try to evaluate if this is something worth it.
Like, what am I selling?
Yeah, you really have to think about that. You got to think about what you're selling and why people should buy it. That goes for
I got you.
Business, right? That goes for any business, but for music specifically, is something that people really have to think about. Like they have to be just good at something. They can't like it's that weird Venn diagram or that weird double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, you got to be really good at answering emails and being on time and meeting people and responding to calls and doing the gig right, but you got to be able to do the gig. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a balance that you got to kind of strike. But I think with regards to the question you're asking, I think it's really important to be like, yeah, what am I good at? It feels weird to be kind of self-aware like that sometimes, like to be quite honest with you. And I'm not always that kind of aware. I just know that I can do certain things, so I kind of just weigh on those, but I don't really think about it too much. But you got to just really practice. The best advice I can give with regards to that kind of thing is make sure you. It's like playing a fighting game, right? It's like you can have your own style, but you got to know the basic things that everybody else knows.
Yeah, be versatile. Like know your basics.
Well, it's more just like there's a baseline of tech that you got to have, right? If you're playing like,
I see.
If you're playing Tekken, it's like no matter what character you're playing, you should always know how to like KBD. You should know how to Korean backdash. You should know how to dash. But like you don't have to play a Mishima just because they have the best wave dash. It's like no, you can play freaking Kuma. You can play whatever. You can play Ice Climbers in Smash. You can do whatever you want as long as you at least know the baseline of things that everybody else knows, so that you can be unique. Because you have to. The thing about knowing what is good, what you're good at, is about standing out and being unique. Which means that you can do a sort of baseline. You got your scales on point. You got this and that, blah blah blah, whatever. But you have this thing about you that people should call you for, and it doesn't mean that like, oh, I gotta strive to be unique in every single aspect. It's like, no, sometimes you just want to be that guy. Like I know people who are completely content and comfortable with just being an on-call session musician who can just read, but they are really good at reading. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just those kinds of things. It's just those kinds of things you gotta figure out, and then really try to be in situations where you can show people that, like not necessarily be in their face about it, but try to find yourself in situations where they can know that you're good at that thing. And if you are not in those, create those situations for yourself. And that's kind of like the best thing you can really do for yourself in terms of making your personal brand out there for people to want to get into, if that makes sense.
Cool. Cheers for that, Zach. Next one, we got Chaos coming on, who I just invited to speak.
Oh, and also just a thing, Alfie. Maybe kind of let them like say thanks or something before.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Zach, if you just want to quickly come back on.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like, thanks for that, because I'm getting close, like to getting where my voice is like discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no
I'm
problem.
getting there.
We'll probably hang later on Discord.
Yeah.
So peace, dude.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, Alfie. I just think that's a good idea.
No, yeah, definitely. Chaos, you're back on.
Alright, thank you so much for having me. One question. I'm kind of a newer saxophone player, and I'm really struggling to find my sound. I'm wondering if you have any advice about that.
So this is an interesting conversation. I'm glad you really asked this question, because it's I think the more it's asked, the more the answers vary, especially for the different levels. But I'd say at the level you're at, the sound will find you. Because at the core of it, yes, I think everyone has their own sound already. I think it's impossible to not sound like you. At any level, even at the beginning level, even at the most advanced level. It doesn't matter. But it's kind of like, you got to approach it organically, because it's kind of like growing up and speaking, right? Like, who are the first people that you transcribe in life? It's your mom and your dad, those are the first people you transcribe, or for some people it's, mom and mom, or dad and dad, or just mom, just dad. I've been in situations like that myself. So like, but either way, whoever is taking care of you, that first person is your first like transcription assignment. And then as you get a little more advanced and you start hanging with people at the daycare or like kindergarten, whatever, on the playground, you start transcribing your friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what happens. Like, and then and what that means is that you're spending a lot of time picking up on things that you like from either like the most confident member of your group or the member that like kind of stands out to you the most in terms of like what you like, and you start subconsciously taking in the words they say of whoever you spend the most time with. I mean, there's a thing that happens with best friends, like where they start kind of laughing like each other almost. And I always think that's really fascinating too. Like the whoever you spend most of your time with, if you're really susceptible to them and just like kind of being an open person, you might start quite literally laughing like them. You might start saying certain their catchphrases. I know I hang with my friend Tristan. He's been like one of my best friends for the past like 4 or 5 years now, and he says like, "Dang, And I used to never say dang like that or dang at all, really. And I realized that sometimes, like when something really affects me, it's kind of has more of an impact than cussing. It's like dang. Sometimes it's like dang, right? It's that kind of thing. So I'm constantly transcribing too. Even though I quote unquote have my own voice is an amalgamation and a combination of all of my different influences. So I'd say that in this situation that you're in right now with the music, you're in the stage where, like, if you're new, you're just still absorbing a bunch of different types of music. You're absorbing a bunch of different artists. You're absorbing just new things in general. Everything is still kind of new. So you don't have to really worry too much about getting your own voice, because first of all, it's already there. Like, no matter how much you transcribe somebody else, you can never, like, I don't care who plays the Charlie Parker transcription, I'll be able to tell it's not Charlie Parker. Like, I can tell it's I may not know who that person is if I never met him, but I know it's not Bird. Because you can tell it's not Bird. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. So you already have your own sound. We're all different. We all have different nasal cavities. We all have different throats. We all have different embouchures and all that kind of stuff. So because of that, we're always going to sound different. But I think in the situation what you're talking about, it just behooves you to kind of just listen to as much stuff as possible. Have very clear, unlike social interactions, it's you're not just stuck listening to like Charlie Parker, just stuck listening to Coltrane, for everything. Like, you have to pick that yourself. But that's why you have to naturally gravitate towards the recordings, kind of like they're your friends, and then kind of like stick with them because you like them, and then pick up things that you like about it, and then eventually over time you'll start to, like, that's the other thing. Record yourself often. Record yourself with whatever you got. You got an iPhone, put it on. Back when I had to record myself, I had like a kind of a Logitech PlayStation, like a iTech mic, iToy mic or something. I plug it in my computer and record with that on freaking GarageBand or something. But yeah, you can use your phones now. So, like, use your iPhone. Record yourself, anything, and then, like, kind of a few years later, even like a year later, even a few months, it's like, I sound different. You'll start noticing that. You may not sound like crazy different, like in like a few months, but you'll notice that things are starting to change the more that you play. So I think, I wouldn't be too nervous about that or too hasty, because it will come naturally. It's just a matter of you taking the time to have as many influences open to you as possible, so that you can consciously develop your sound. If that makes sense.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Hang on. Cool. Cheers for that. The next one asking a question is Q36 or Caillou36.
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Q.
Hey, Pat. What's good? Hey. So, I just want to say, first of all, like, I've been working in advertisement for 6 to 7 years, and everything you're saying about, like, how to do sales and how to market yourself, it's applicable for anything, really. It's not joking, guys. It's like,
That's awesome.
this
I'm
is,
glad you're not talking out of my butt then.
I mean, it's probably been working for you, so
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, my question is, by far the biggest change, I'd say, for content creators and creatives in general, contemporary, is that nowadays you can have a much closer relationship with your fans and the people who consume your stuff, right? But it's also really new. Like, there's not really any sort of precedent on how you like, I don't know, like, you sort of want some kind of privacy, right? Like, there's a balance there you want to maintain, and there's not really like an official kind of language or a kind of I'm sorry, I'm not really I'm Norwegian, so
Bro, it's okay. You're doing.
yeah. An order of conduct. There we go. That's right. There's not really like a set order of conduct, or like a socially accepted limit, like where this is okay. This is where I act for my fans, and this is just straight up private life. So
Right.
I've just been wondering, like, and as far as like separating your own creative work from like what people want to hear, and not confusing that, do you have like some tools you've used, or like some ideas to sort of navigate that space? Because you've you let people in very close to you, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's an interesting question. It sounds like what you're asking is like how have I been able to kind of balance being like a professional and an entertainer versus also being like a personable figure and like kind of just like my own personal,
Yeah,
how much of my personal life am I letting into the scope and how much am I hiding basically or stuff like that, like how do I balance that?
yeah. Sort of how you navigate that, because
Yeah,
you only have to go like one generation back before like most of us couldn't even have like gotten in
right,
touch with you.
right, yes, it's very true.
It's a very new thing.
Yeah, it is. So interesting thing about that, when I think the internet has kind of created this interesting scope um of how to do that. And I think the reason why it's done that is because before this, there was kind of a fourth wall that was very clearly defined in performing. And I think there kind of is still like that with performing. When you're performing, you're putting on a show, right? And then also celebrity-wise, you know, all the biggest movie stars in Hollywood or whatever, they're not streaming on Twitch, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. And at a certain point, it gets difficult to constantly put up a front about everything. So I think like what I've developed is like an ability to kind of selectively figure out what I'm letting people see, uh, and specifically about how I feel about things, not necessarily just about the content. I think it comes from like a confidence standpoint. I personally feel like I don't have a lot to hide, so I think it depends on the person. I don't like lying. So I personally have a lot of things. I don't have a lot of things that I don't want to share with people because I like having genuine connections with people when I feel like I can trust them. And also, I'm very confident in myself in the sense that I feel like the things that get out about me, I don't care if people know them because they don't have a impact to me in my experience and how I feel about the world and how I feel about the career that I've chosen. I don't think it has really an impact on people's relationship towards me, which I think is unfortunately not something a lot of people in other types of careers can say. And that's why I feel very kind of grateful that I've been able to show as much of my own personality as possible and make that a part of my brand, actually. And the reason I did that is because I kind of grew up, even though I'm kind of extroverted now, like I'm definitely way more than I used to be, I kind of used to be more introverted. I mean, I grew up as an only child and I was into a lot of weird things, so I only had a few friends that I could really talk to about certain things, but yeah, once I got into music, I realized that, like, man, it's really hard to have things that are interesting for me to say that are kind of general small talk or general knowledge because I don't feel like I relate to a lot of different people. So the way I've been able to kind of have quote unquote people get close to me, as you say, is because I finally feel like I have a platform where I can, and a space. You know, that's why I love the Discord that I've created. Like everybody's made it really be such a nice place for me and everybody else to exist. I'm very happy about that. I find that I have like a space and a platform to express myself and have that be who I am. Because otherwise I'd be fishing for content and trying to be something that I'm not. So I think that's kind of the rare thing about music, and one of the best things I think that's happened, ironically, as a result of the pandemic. It's like we talk about the pandemic being really bad, which it really is. I'm not going to downplay the pandemic, but it's given everybody kind of an interesting opportunity to look inside themselves and figure out what it is they're showing to people. But I've always been trying to do this. I try to do this a little bit while I'm on stage, but you only have like an hour, and you don't really, and you have to play. You're there to play music. You're not there to chat. So you can only do so much. But when I'm on stream, I can kind of just be myself. I'm here in my place, and however I am with people in real life, I can just be here. And you just kind of learn how to do that in social situations anyway. So as long as you're comfortable with yourself, I feel like it's really easy to kind of just not to make that your professional thing. Because I know how to be professional. Like I'll go on and talk business and be very professional. But I don't think being professional means that you have to hide anything. I think being professional just means be professional. You know, we know a lot of different people in the industry that are completely unabashedly 100% unadulterated versions of themselves. They're just them, but they still get work. You know, we know a lot of people like that. So I think this is a great example of like kind of how to do that. And I've kind of just learned from all them how to have the confidence to be myself in whatever situation that I'm in, no matter what. So that's kind of how that happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks. Honesty, keeping it real. Can't really get better than that. Thanks a lot. Great answer.
No problem. Thank you, Q.
Yeah, cheers, Q. Yeah, that was a really cool response as well. It was interesting what you said about how coronavirus is kind of, not to make light of it, but kind of weirdly helped, because I think another artist who's kind of gone along those lines, and he's actually got his own Discord as well. I'm not sure how long it's been going on, but I definitely discovered it during the course of all this. Is Kiefer, who has his own stream and that sort of thing going on, and I do think it's cool because in one way, obviously it's kind of terrible that the pandemic has drawn a lot of people apart and made it so that the only way to communicate is on Zoom rather than what they'd usually be doing. But I guess what you would usually be doing is, like you say, being on a stage with that sort of fourth wall. So when it comes to two-way sort of interaction, that's really cool how it has, in some sense, had a bit of a silver lining.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm going to invite Todd up to speak next.
Yeah.
If he's still there.
Yeah, you still gotta accept the.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's up top.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I don't know why I'm nervous. I can't even see the audience, but I sort of have two questions. One is going back to what you said about music school and how it's more about, building connections rather than it is, being able to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go to a dedicated music school, but my parents wouldn't. I don't think they'd financially support me if I did. So if I went to a liberal arts college and then kind of double majored in music, would I get that same sort of community? Oh, and my second question is, what happened to the Goomba profile picture?
I think throughout the various discords that I were in, I think people were like having a hard time recognizing me, so I just decided to put that in there. But no, so to answer your question, yes. I mean, I don't want to say yes and no. I think it's yes and it depends. Because the reason why I said the answer I did about music school being a place to like connect and meet people is because it depends on the scene. If the college you go to is in the place that you want to move to, who knows? It might not even turn into that. I knew I wanted to be in New York. I didn't know I wanted to move there. I didn't know I wanted to stay there. So like it could be like that became a decision that I made after I started getting more work in New York. After my senior year, I was like, yo, I gotta find a place to stay so I can keep doing this. And it kind of just happened that way because it was my first time being on my own, and I was really excited about it. So if the school you go to happens to be in the area that you also want to kind of work in, or it's not, and it happens to turn into that, then yeah, meet those people. It fulfills the same purpose. It's less about like going to a place where there's a bunch of killing people, where obviously that's good. You should be around people who challenge you, which is obviously good. As long as the people around you are definitely challenging you, then it's good. Otherwise, you have to challenge yourself, which can be very difficult. Otherwise, you can take trips if you want to move to New York, you want to go to New Orleans or LA. You can always take a plane trip to those places. It's so easy to travel, nowadays. So I mean, we're all able to experience that at that point. If you're in America, I'm not sure if you're in America, but if you're, somewhere else, I think the same thing applies no matter where you are in the world. Like if you want to work in Shanghai, go to school in Shanghai. If you want to work in Tokyo, you can go to school at Tokyo. Koyo University is there for that. Or like in Spain, like Barcelona, there's like, I know Berkeley has like their exchange program. Like it depends. No matter where you are in the world, like, there's always going to be an opportunity to network. So I think in terms of, obviously you don't want to go to like a school that's not going to teach you nothing. You want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. I'm only saying that you shouldn't go to school just for the school. Like you definitely should go to school to make sure that you get your education, because if you don't doing that, I know, listen, college is college. People be skipping class from time to time. I'm not going to say that everybody, including myself, is perfect. I'm just saying that for the most part, you go to school because of class, to get your grades, make sure you, do your tests, make sure you pass. But, meet people, hang out, and learn stuff from them. And, that's what you want to do at any place. So, yes, I think it doesn't matter if you're at a music school or not. I mean, it's really unfortunate that you don't think your parents would support you financially at music school, but also do understand it's kind of a big leap, kind of a jump, and it's also not normal in society for people to think that. But I do think that no matter what school you go to, as long as you're applying the same things, that you would at a normal music school, you get the same results, because you can get that from freaking you can do woodworking, you can, do home ec. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're networking you'll get the desired result. So I think you'll still grow better as a musician from doing that, because as far as I know, every single state got some kind of jam sessions going on in their cities. I mean, even freaking Alaska. I found that out last night that there's an Alaskan jazz scene. I'm like, what the heck is Alaskan jazz? you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just found out that there's a scene there. So I'm like, okay, Sitka. They got a Sitka Jazz Festival. Like Freddie Cole and all them cats been out there. I just texted Sullivan Fortner last night. I was like, bro, you went to freaking Alaska? And he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I went out there with Carla Tate. I was like, oh, okay, that's wild. So yeah, my point is that, like, as long as you go somewhere and then find out what the jazz scene is there, it don't matter. You don't gotta do it in music school, man. Like, you can go to a liberal arts school that has music as a part of it, and you'll still be fine, man. It really, as long as you're able to just learn as much as possible from wherever you go, I think you'd be cool,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, Todd.
Yeah, cheers for that. This next one is, I guess, another like super broad one, but this is quite cool. This is from Kelios, and he says, "Who do you think are the people moving jazz forward right now?" Which I guess you can interpret that in so many different ways as well.
You can, and I feel like I might be the wrong person to ask this question.
Fair
but
enough.
I do have some people that I think people should watch out for, that are either my friends or people that I've been trying to keep an eye out for. I might be biased because they're in New York, and even though they're not from New York, they're people that I have a lot of respect for. It's funny how most of them are trumpet players, but Gifton Jellin, I think Gifton Jellin is from the Bahamas. He actually was kind of under the tutelage of Roy Hargrove. Like I don't know if there's a single young person I really liked more than Gifton. He's making waves now. Anthony Hervey is making waves now. Elena Penderhughes is making waves. Moving jazz forward. Yeah, I really think like they're doing a lot to move the music. In terms of young people, I guess younger, but not young. I'd say that in the past 10 years, Christian Scott has had an incredible influence over how jazz has been played, from a lot of different points of view. And the people in his band have been doing the same thing, like Braxton Cook, for example, and Corey Fonville. Like, a lot of them have been really influencing the way people do stuff. But other than that, like, I'm pretty bad at keeping up with modern jazz musicians because I've kind of been on my own little personal quest to do stuff and figure out what my sound is. And a lot of those guys are my friends, so I don't really have an accurate scope on like how the effect that they have on other people.
Yeah.
But I would say like I definitely will watch out for those cats. Big shout out to them. Also a lot of my other friends like Ruben Fox, Julian Lee, like Russell Hall. Like, they're really taking music in a really... Oh, yeah, Alfie, you probably know Ruben.
I know, yeah, I've met him loads. Yeah, he performs in Brixton quite a lot.
Yes, in Brixton. Yeah. I want to go back to London, bro. With
Mark Kavuma and that.
Yes, Mark Kavuma, yeah.
Yeah, oh my god, before Corona, I literally... Because they had, like, their little weekly instalment there, and they had another one going on in 91 Living Room. I don't know if you know that. That's near like Liverpool Street. So sometimes I'd literally be seeing them like twice a week.
Yeah, man. I really.
Yeah, he's insane.
I told myself I was gonna get out to London at some point, like either this year or next year again. Cause
I mean, as soon as you do, I'm gonna be there.
Bro, heck yeah. But yeah, there's so many other people I could name. I think, but I have to go back and think. But those are the people that come to my mind first. So.
We've got a question from Flair here. I think you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a question about what it's like moving, like, out of music school into the world as a professional musician. Like, what's the best way to prepare for the transition and make sure you're in the best, like, footing to get going as soon as you can?
Well, it's basically doing what I said before with the other previous questions. Like, you gotta, like, the networking is basically there to not get you a gig now, it's there to get you a gig later. That's because, you can meet people and stuff, and if they don't, they might not have something for you right now, but they may have something for you later because you're gonna keep putting yourself in their scope of vision, in their line of sight, and that's extremely important to me, and that's the reason why I think you should be networking. because the networking is what helps you do that, and also just trying to like go to sessions and gig as much as possible. That's really important. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That's like that's what helped me when I was in school. I basically went out to Smalls, a jam session, from my freshman year, but even the orientation freshman year, I went there like 4 days a week. I was not there. I left my dorm at 12:30 in the morning, to get down into the session. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when I left. I would come back at like 5 or 6 and then go to class at like 8 in the morning. I was thirsty for that music. So I was doing that. I'm not saying like to sleep deprive yourself, even though class might make you do that because all the projects and freaking assignments you're gonna be doing. But I'd say that you want to just plant those seeds early, so that you can when you do get out and you want to go right into it, it doesn't feel like a transition. Like the transition will feel like, okay, I don't have enough work to really make it feel like I'm, super, comfortable, but at least I'm stable. Because then you get more work the more you do, because you're gonna have more freedom to take the gig since you're gonna be out of school. So you got to just do all that networking while you're in school, and then just keep getting better, so that every time people hear you, it doesn't sound like you got worse, but you're getting better. That's really the best thing I can say. Honestly, it helps.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Cool, cheers for that. Next one from Attila. This one's kind of a little bit philosophical. What's one piece of life-changing advice that you were given, I guess if any, that really like completely flipped how you thought about a certain thing, whether it was like in music or anything else in life?
That's a good question. There's a lot of stuff like that.
I guess that definitely puts you on the spot, because there's a lot to think about there.
No, but I'm extremely grateful for all the mentors I've had in life, and I don't want to, especially if any of them end up listening to this, I don't want them to be like, what about that thing I told you? I remember you told me that changed your life. And I was like, no, they can say it. But, a big influential figure in my life since I was like 12 years old has always been Wynton Marsalis. And Wynton really, throughout every aspect of my life that I've kind of had issues or thought about stuff, he's always had some kind of ridiculous prophetic oracle-like thing that he said that I kind of just like made me think about stuff in a different way. And that freaking HBO masterclass, that was it. So first of all, the HBO masterclass series thing that I did as a part of Young Arts and HBO, collaboration between the two, was the thing that got me like kind of on the map with a lot of people, because it premiered during my junior year, and so a lot of people saw me as a result of that. Even though people were sort of seeing me before that, like they knew me, they just mostly knew me as like a student, like a young upcoming whatever. But then that thing that I did really helped to solidify my presence and to continue building from that. But there's something you said there, and what he did was he gave everybody kind of a word. It was me, Russell Hall, and Antonio Madruga. He was a great piano player, but he left New York some years ago, and he gave all of us like a word based on his assessment of us. Like we just played a blues. All we did was play a few choruses of a blues, and then he gave everybody a word to think about. And what was and so the word he gave to Antonio was sophistication, because he felt like he was sticking to a lot of things that were safe and not really exploring enough options based on what everybody else is doing. He gave Russell, I think it was concentration, I think was the word he gave to Russell. And to me, he said, relax. Very deep, right? He just said, relax. And he kept elaborating from that. He was basically just like, you got a lot of fire in you, But like when a moment happens, wait. He said, when a moment happens, wait. Let me tell you something. After this week that I spent from there, it completely changed how I thought about and listened to music and played with people. And I was spending basically the rest of my time from my sophomore year of college just trying to practice this. I'm still practicing this to this day, and I feel like I'm going to practice it for the rest of my life. But I'm a lot better at it now, and it's helped me to actually just kind of play and think about everything. It's a very open standpoint. But he was like, he said there's a lot of weight behind certain things that you say. And, in that video, he puts on my shoulder, he's like, imagine, he said basically the things that that you say have the weight because of the space that comes after them. Right? You give people the time to respond to it. So he's thinking stuff like he'll put my hand on my shoulder and say, "Man, you got a great sound," or like putting a hand on the shoulder and being like, "Man, you got to work on your tone." It's like the space in between that creates that time to kind of for it to make sense, as opposed to saying, "Man, you got a great sound, man." So this other thing that I want to talk about in this piece is like, wait, hold on, wait. You know what I'm saying? It just keeps going and going, right? Like you might have a lot of good stuff to say, but if you don't relax, you know, like
and let it really sink in.
Yeah, you got to give people time to digest it. And what he kept saying from there was he was just like, listen, it may sound like a joke when I say this next thing, but he was like, and Russell said, like, did you hear what Russell played in his second chorus and the third bar? It sounds funny, right? But like, it's kind of true. I was just like, no, like, why would I remember that? It's like, yeah, because you weren't listening. Like, you know, it's just like,
yeah,
it sounds ridiculous, but I would know if I was listening for it, you know. And he gave Russell the word concentration, I think, because you know there's certain things that he would develop and set up. He would kind of go away from and not realize like that something could be made out of that, you know, like stuff like that. But for me, the relax was such an important thing because he helped me realize like, dang, like I had a lot of passionate ideas and I was starting to learn some more stuff, but I wasn't really thinking about the context of the full band. Like I always wanted to play with people, but I never knew why. Like I always wanted to play with people and I was like, oh yeah, interaction, like we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. It sounds good. It feels good. But what am I actually listening for? Like what, you know, like can I actually process everything that's going on around me before I speak? And that really just kind of turned everything on its head for me. It was kind of crazy.
I really like your approach to kind of separating playing from performing. There's sort of two different things.
Yeah,
because you've got like the more abstract sort of side on it, on the other end. So do you think like that's something that you don't necessarily get from music school?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't get from music school, and because at the core of the curriculum, I don't know, you would think that it is their job to do that, but they don't make it their job to do that. Like it's music performance, right? Music performance is a thing, and that's a degree that you go for as a music performance major. Every school has their ideas of what it means to be a performer, and whatever school you go to, you're going to be under the guise and the tutelage of whatever their ideal for performing is. Whatever their guidelines, whatever their standards for performance is, you're going to be under that. So sometimes it is really on you to learn from other people like what that means. Because a lot of, at least from my experience in school, there might be obviously some talk like, oh yeah, you got to do this and you got to such and such, but they don't ever straight up say, okay, there's a difference between playing and performing music. Like they kind of just leave that up to the student to figure out, which I think is kind of dangerous.
No, because I never really thought about it, to be honest.
Right. Let me tell you that. I don't think it's dangerous. I just think it's lacking. I think it's kind of a waste to not do that. Not dangerous because people can do it. You know, you get a grant. You get a grant from some rich old person. You can do whatever you want, right? But if you don't have that and you're like the rest of us, then you got to learn the difference, you know, between playing and performing and how to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
When necessary. So yeah, I don't know. I would be inclined to agree with that.
Let me just check if anyone's got their hand up. No, cool. Oh my god, I was gonna say I was probably leaving someone waiting for ages again, but fortunately not. Yeah, next question. This is a very simple one. What's your alto setup?
Alto setup? I play. Well, I'm sponsored by Ligaphone, so I play Ligaphone ligatures and reeds. I play usually a size 3. It's very balanced. I tend to go for the classical side of things when it comes to reeds because I don't like the way quote-unquote jazz reeds sound or feel. I like a more neutral sound. I don't like something giving me a sound. So I like the classical reeds because they're kind of just very neutral and filed. So usually 3 classical reeds. 2.5 of them playing really old music so that I can kind of get more of a wider sound. I play a Meyer 6, like an M, 6M. It's like stock. I actually got that Meyer from my friend. back in 2000. I got to play it in 2008, and he gave it to me in 2009 because he didn't need it anymore. Because he was actually a piano player, but he played saxophone a little bit. So he just gave me that mouthpiece because he didn't play it, and I was like, nice, because I was looking for I didn't know what mouthpiece to play. I was playing like a freaking Brillheart, freaking 4. Like I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be like Bird. Let me play a Brillheart Ebonite. And I was of course, it didn't really sound that good, but it was fun to play on it. And I was playing kind of like Java, like Van Doren Java before. It was kind of crazy, but basically from that point, like from my end of my sophomore year going to junior year of high school, I played Meyer all the way up until now. And then I played Yamaha 62 that I got from the recently passed, late but incredibly great Jeff Clayton, who got me that saxophone because I didn't have one. I couldn't afford one. And I brought like a beat up saxophone with like rubber bands and paper towels and tape all over it to the Vail Jazz Workshop. And yeah, he thought like, how the heck do you play this? And I was just like, it's all I got. Got home 2 days later, you know, me and my mom were just in tears. Couldn't believe that he got us a saxophone.
So cool.
So I owe a lot to him. I still play that horn today. I'm probably not gonna play any other horn. Mostly because I also like Yamaha, so hopefully one day I'll get sponsored by them. But.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really lovely story, actually.
Yeah, man.
Another question from Chris without an I, so CRHS. What's your practice routine?
I don't really have one. I just kind of practice. That's kind of like a bad answer. But yeah, I don't really have one. I used to kind of have a more regimented one when I was in middle school and then early high school. But at a certain point, I kind of just stopped needing to have a routine because I was just playing so much. Like I wanted to play.
Yeah.
So I would do a lot of. There would be something that I wanted to practice, and I would just practice that until I got tired of practicing it, and then wait till the next day to practice it again. You know, like it would just.
Yeah, so it kind of just took flight.
Yeah, I kind of approached it like I approached practicing fighting games. It's like kind of the same thing for me, or practicing shooting games or whatever. Like I'll have a thing that I want to do, and I'll just practice that kind of on a whim, or like when I'm really inspired to do it. Because that's the other thing. I don't think you really get anything out of practice sessions unless you actually want to practice. If you kind of just force yourself to do it, like you won't really understand why you're doing it or why you're supposed to do it. Like obviously you should motivate yourself, but motivating yourself is different from forcing yourself. To me, there's certain instruments where you kind of have to practice, like unfortunately, like trumpet. Like, you kind of have to practice that every day because it's like it'll, you know.
Because I really wondered about that actually. I remember talking about it with someone, I can't remember who it was, but in a chat on Jazzcord, and I wasn't really sure like whether it was best to just kind of force yourself to play even when you weren't feeling it, because when I don't play my instrument for a little while, I play tenor sax, and when I don't play for a little while, the urge kind of builds up, you know. And
you can get some really powerful practice sessions out of that.
Yeah, and I've been in Leeds for like a week, and like when I left, I hadn't played for like a week. Like it just been sitting in my room, and I've been looking at it, kind of feeling really bad, but not really going anywhere near it. And then the moment I left London, all I could think about was playing it. So it's been building up, and then I've come back for this, and I'm just delighted. And it feels like in one like short little practice session, I got so much more out of it than I would have in like the whole week. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool to hear from you.
That's not to say, of course.
There's obviously like a balance to it.
But I obviously I don't practice as much nowadays as I used to. I mostly do my practicing on stream, honestly, just because like that's like an opportunity to kind of, like if there's a song going on, or if I pick my warm-ups for my streams or whatever, like I do song requests on my stream on Twitch, where like people can request songs, as long as it's Japanese, and I'll play it. And sometimes there's a certain thing, like I'll hear a song like so I'm thinking, okay, here's my time to practice my articulation, or here's my time to practice my 4-note cells. Here's my time to practice, because like it'll still be musical. I'm still gonna make music, but I'm thinking consciously, like, okay, this is also another good opportunity. I'm not okay. So that's the wrong way to put it. I'm not consciously saying to myself, here's a conscious way of doing it. It's just like the first thing that'll come to my head is, oh, I want to play this because this is the first thing I hear. But I'm like, I wonder if I can actually play that right now, and then I'll just start playing basically just that, and then I'll practice, But otherwise, like, if I'm at home, then I mostly practice concepts now. I don't really practice like my scales in the way that I used to. I'm constantly practicing different patterns and stuff because I think you always have to practice fundamentals. All the best musicians have their fundamentals intact, like you have to. So I am basically like making sure I do a diagnostic on all of my scales and everything like that. But for the most part, I'm practicing concepts mostly nowadays, and just making sure I'm still in shape. You know, it's like doing cardio. It's like, yeah, you can do this and bench this and whatever, but just making sure your heart is healthy. That's what I do with my scales. Just making sure that my fingers are healthy, my articulation. I practice articulation stuff, whatever. But it's I kind of just, if there's a song that I want to play, I'll play over it, play with it. I still to this day, like recently in the past few months, I busted out the Aebersalds again. Like I used to, play a lot with Jamie Aebersalt record before I Real B. We just had the Aebersalt CDs, and I still personally think that they're better. The good thing about I Real B is that you can just keep playing for as long as you want. But I love the Aebersalt recordings because it's like an actual band that's playing, and so like you can practice like swinging with a band, you can practice all that kind of stuff. Like you can practice.
It's
like,
a bit more dynamic.
Yeah, when you hear a voicing, you can practice playing over that voicing. You can like practice like playing over like a bass note. There's a bunch of different things you can do with those recordings. So I actually do like kind of just pulling out like, hey, do I know this tune? I haven't played this tune in a long time. Like a Joe Henderson tune. Let me pull up Punjab or something like. Like I haven't played this tune in a long time. I don't know. So sometimes I might do that, and that might only last for like 10 minutes, and then I'll put my horn down for the day. But I've done something. Sometimes I'll get into a mode. I don't really have as much time to do this anymore. That's the other thing. But if I have a complete day off, my horn might be in my hand for 3 hours. Like, and I won't even realize it. It just depends. I think if you just like, have the inspiration to play, just play. It doesn't even have to be regimented. I think at the certain point that most people might be at right now, who's asking the questions, like you should be doing things a little more regimented. Like, make sure you do have your scales. Make sure you are practicing things in fourths and fifths and thirds and get your modes, and you got to do that stuff. You have to be familiar with it, but I don't think it has to necessarily be so rigid all the time. I think if you just feel it, just do it.
You kind of take flight after a certain point.
Yeah, and if you don't feel it, listen. Just listen to some music that inspires you. Like if you're not really feeling it, it might. What it does for me. Sometimes I don't feel like playing at all. As soon as I put on a track, I'm like, dang. I kind of got to play. Like, I'm hearing something, I have to play now. And then, whoops, I guess the horn's in my hand. Time to practice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I totally get you. Like, oftentimes, I'd be playing like a video game or something, just have Spotify on in the background, and I'll constantly be having to pause it because the song will come on and it's like, oh my God, how have I not, like, learned this before? And speaking of, Atlas has a question. Do you have a certain way that you approach learning new tunes or changes?
Oh, Atlas here. What's up, Atlas? A certain way that I approach learning tunes or learning changes. Yeah, I kind of, let's see. It depends on how urgent the learning has to be. So if I have time, like I'm just like, oh, I want to learn this tune. Sorry, I need some water. I feel my voice getting higher because of how little water I'm drinking right now. Hold on.
Honestly, I've gone through 1.5 litres in like the first half of this, and I'm kind of feeling your pain, so give me like 2 seconds.
No problem. We'll do the hydration break. Everybody in chat, drink water. Mizo nondeo.
Sorry about that.
Anyway. No, I'm sorry too. If I don't have to learn a tune immediately for like a gig, then I'll just listen to it as much as possible and kind of just gradually pick it apart. Like, that's like day by day almost. And I end up learning tunes better that way too, because then I'm not so... If I don't have a practical application for the song immediately, then the song might not stick with me if I learn it too quickly. If I do learn a tune really quickly, the only way I'll remember it is if I'm able to like be forced in a situation where I have to play it. But if I'm just learning a tune, then I'd rather take it kind of slow. Like, I'll just be playing with it a bunch. Like, I really like this song, so I'll just kind of listen to it a lot, and I'll kind of have my horn out and picking out little things piece by piece, like maybe like 2 bars, 4 bars at a time. I mean, I do have perfect pitch, so like it makes hearing the harmonies easier. But even then, like, there's still certain things that perfect pitch can't do, which like perfect pitch does not allow you to instantly play everything correctly. So you still got to practice, and certain things that might rub and like, oh, what is that? What actually is that? Because you still have to commit it to memory. Like, you can hear it, but can you memorize it? So for me, learning a tune is about making sure I can commit it to memory, which is why I do things slowly. Because I think regardless if you're perfect pitch or not, once you know the chords, you want to kind of digest it in pieces. That's the same reason you don't just eat an entire hamburger like Kirby. You know, freaking just like just inhale the burger at once. You know, you have to bite it, you know, piece by piece in pieces that you can digest. And I think doing that for music is also important. So like I'll do something like what's a tune? I don't know, Beatrice. Something like Beatrice. Like I'll just have that kind of cell like going on, right? Like you know, or I used to just have that going on for a while. Stella by Starlight, that's another good one. Like that one was actually kind of rough for me to learn because I didn't really understand how the harmony works. Like I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So my thing is, in order for me to learn the changes and melody as a complete thing, I'll only focus on the melody because I'm like, how does this melody work? Like, why does this melody work over the changes? Because the melody informs the harmony. It's not the other way around. It's never the other way around. It's impossible for it to be the other way around. Unless you write a song that is kind of like harmony first, you just got some changes, and then you put like a melody on it. But usually, for like Great American Songbook Standards or any of those type of tunes, like the melody informs the harmony. Yeah. Like you have a melody, and then you know, there's things underneath it. It might come at the same time, but the melody is the thing that makes the harmony sound good, not the other way around. So it's like you can do reharms to certain songs, right? But the melody is always going to be the melody, and the reharms are just going to make the song sound different. But it's not necessarily going to change the melody. So that's why I always focus on the melody to figure out why it works. And it helps me to actually inform the way I solo as well. I think about that with like a song like There'll Never Be Another You. I kind of always think about the melody first. Like when I'm playing, I like it always sounds so natural to play the 6 because it just makes sense. Yeah. The melody starts on the 6. So, well, it's the 5 going to the 6, but you know, that's the point.
I got a couple questions leading from that. Sorry, continue.
No, it's really that. There's not a lot much more than that. So go ahead.
I was wondering how you felt, and I wonder if you do this actually. But I guess one of my all-time biggest influences is Dexter Gordon, and he always really stressed the importance of learning the song, so learning the actual lyrics to the melody.
Yes.
I was wondering, like, is that something that you do, or is that maybe something more specific to him?
I admittedly don't do it for every single song, but I at least will look at the lyrics. Like, you know, like I might not have it memorized.
Get the vibe.
Like, every time I look at the lyrics, it always helps me play the song. Like there's never a time where it didn't do that, because it prevents you from making certain melodic decisions that don't make sense. A great example, I was talking with one of my friends last night actually about what is this thing called love. And it seems to be kind of I don't know why this happened. Even some older musicians were like at fault for doing this. Like nobody's perfect, right? But there seems to be this thing in academia where everybody plays the melody to what is this thing called love is. Da 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 da, sa di da da. Every time. For some reason, that's every A. When the only time it does that is the last A. Because what's the first lyric, right? What is this thing called love? That's the lyric. The lyric is not, what is this thing called love? Like, that's not the lyric. So it's like, if you learn the lyric to the song, it'll make sense why you shouldn't do that.
So we were literally talking about this the other day as well, me and Flair here. And he was asking, what's a good recording I should learn the melody from? Because every single one seems to be played differently.
I can give you an answer to that. Go listen to the original recording of every single song from the musical or the movie that it's from. Every single one.
That's a brilliant suggestion.
That's how you play. I made that discovery my sophomore year in college because there were a lot of on the freshman tune list. I was like, hey, I got this. I know all these tunes. Most of this, that's easy. And then the second year, I'm just like, I actually don't know a lot of this stuff. Holy crap! Like I don't know these tunes. Like I thought I would have, but I don't. Like I learned a lot of the kind of common jam session stuff, but I didn't know like just one of those things. I didn't know My Romance. I didn't know a lot of those tunes. But yeah, so I went to go check out. You know, I would look up the song like any good millennial, I don't know, like / Gen Z or like, you know, like I might be like, you know, I would do like any of this. I would do like anybody would do in our position and use the internet. So I just Googled like a song. Like, I don't know what song I would Google. Like maybe, what did I do? Embraceable You. Like I realized like, okay, I kind of know this, but I don't really know it. Let me check it out. You know, so I Google Embraceable You. And what do? We click on the Wikipedia page. because I want to know like what recording can I look at, because all these jazz musicians keep playing freaking subu didi habado subu bidi budi boo boo. It's like, where the melody? I don't know. Like, that's not gonna help me learn the melody. I don't know what this melody is. You know what I mean? So like, I'll be like, I'll look at Wikipedia and find out what's the earliest recording that everybody bounced their stuff from. And I was like, oh, okay, it's from this play. Oh, I didn't know. Embrace of You. It's from Girl Crazy, George Gershwin musical. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So, and then I go listen to it, and I would listen to Judy Garland sing it. And I was like, dang, okay. And I learned the melody because that's the first time a lot of people heard this music. So people aren't going to embellish a melody people don't know yet because they want people to learn it. So I listened to the original recording, not the original cover, the original recording. It's like, why would you learn the melody to a pop song nowadays from a cover? Like, you probably want to learn it from the original so that you can make a cover of it. So it's the same thing that all the jazz musicians did. Like, they knew it because it was on the radio. It was pop music at the time. So the way I learn tunes like that is I'll actually just go straight up to the original recording. I don't even go to like the lead sheet, because like a lot of the times, like, the lead sheets in real books are people writing them down from jazz musician recordings. So I want to make sure I'm
it's
getting
like
the
Chinese
actual
whispers,
melody. Huh?
Maybe you don't have that in America. Do you ever play like Chinese whispers when you were a kid?
No, I've never heard of that.
It was okay. We're going down a totally irrelevant rabbit hole now, but it's like where like you'd start. You'd have like a circle of you, and one person would whisper something to the next person, and you'd go around the circle, and then the last person would have to shout it out, and it would always be kind of very different to the original.
Oh, it's like, we call that telephone. Yeah, it's giving me telephone.
Yeah, probably better without the racial connotations, actually.
That's okay. I mean, that's life, right? That's why we're changing all those things.
Yeah, that's just what everyone called it when I was a little kid. I didn't even consider that.
Right. No.
But Yvonne has also literally just said, going back to the whole idea of melody being different to the original and embellished. On the flip side of that, what about Stella, where everyone knows a different set of changes to the original?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of like investigation on that, but that actually is kind of weird. I still, at the same time, for a tune like that's a good idea. So you can use a tune like that and Round Midnight, right? Like for a tune like Round Midnight, which I'll speak more on since I know more about the history of that. It's like, you want to play the Monk changes. There are a lot of people that want to play the Miles changes, but knowing both is important, because that's unfortunately one of those things that you're gonna have to know both too, so that you can be ready for any situation that comes up. So if it's a tune like Stella, where like it's true, people always know like a different set of changes for some reason, and that's kind of like the beauty of being able to play jazz and be like kind of a communicator, because you're gonna have to be in a situation where, hey, like, what changes are you gonna play? And this happens at jam sessions all the time, and it's totally fine and totally normal. Please have these conversations. Like, if we're talking about consent in other areas, you gotta have consent on the bandstand for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is extremely important to talk about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have communication. And so I think in this situation, for this way, it kind of behooves you to unfortunately have to learn all of all of the different sets of changes that people might play, so that you can be ready for them.
Yeah.
But then when it's your gig, you can call the changes you want to call, So that's also the beauty of that. But otherwise, I can't explain that. That just happens to be a thing when people can't agree on like what they actually want to play. But you can kind of enforce that agreement if you want,
And the other question I had, I guess this is again maybe got a little more room, or maybe you don't have anything to say about it. You probably do.
Okay.
Kind of thinking about melody specifically. Obviously, one player who had a really kind of insightful approach to melody was Thelonious Monk. So more broadly speaking, has he in particular influenced your kind of approach to melody and improvisation, and the relationship between the two in any particular way?
I wouldn't say that he has explicitly informed anything that I do personally, but I will say that like it's hard to say. Like, I definitely have been affected by his music, and I've been kind of in the background, for lack of a better word, influenced by what Monk has done, and I really like his music, and I'll like try to go into that vibe sometimes, but it's not in my daily life. I don't necessarily think about what Monk does as a thing, that's because I honestly haven't checked out Monk as much as other people might have. I've only checked out like the things that everybody says to check out, and also some of the things that I really enjoyed that, of course, had like Charlie Rouse or Johnny Griffin in it, and but I do like Monk's approach. I like Monk's music. It's kind of influenced me to think differently, but not in the sense that like I'm gonna play the way Monk plays or approaches. So.
Interesting question. And this isn't something that I personally do. Victoria asks, do you have a favorite jazz radio station that you listen to?
Ooh, I don't really listen to jazz radio that much. But if I were to pick one, I'd say WBGO 88.3 out of New Jersey is probably my favorite one. I like WBGO even better than I like the Sirius XM jazz radio station, which is I gotta hold my tongue when I say that because Mark Ruffin is a great friend of mine. I love Mark. If you listen to this, much love to you, bro. But he's not the only one at that station, so like I know he's knowing to talk about him, but I love Mark. But it's just that BGO has honestly given me a lot of good performance opportunities as well. And I kind of like I will rep both of them. I will say definitely both the Sirius XM jazz station and WBGO. Like I'm not gonna say one over the other, but I do like both of those stations. I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. If you can somehow tune into 88.3, I think they do internet streams as well. If you can tune into them, do that. There's always interesting stuff. And also I got to rep my hometown radio station, who has had so much stuff going on down here since I was a kid. 88.9, WDNA, incredible as well. Those are my three favorite jazz radio stations, I think.
Cool, I'll check them. Also, kind of along those lines, I was thinking, because I know lots of people are very kind of... I guess this is less of a musician thing and more of an audiophile thing, but I might be wrong. Do you have any particular attitude towards kind of listening to playlists rather than albums, or listening to like albums as a whole, or shuffling albums and playlists? Like, do you think there's a certain art to sort of curation in that sense?
I mean, I'm sure there might be, but I don't give it that much thought. Unless I'm putting together something for somebody else, or like, I don't concentrate too much on that because the way I've always listened to music, like I used to just download stuff all the time. I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm not really too big into the streaming music. Not just because of any like music rights or artist rights thing, but mostly just because I come from internet old school. Like I use LimeWire and stuff. So like I was just downloading music instead of, or like like I'd do that, or I would buy the track from FYE or Sam Goody and rip the CD to my computer. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. So I would just kind of always have albums, and I would always listen to music in album format as a result. That's another thing. Like. I did come up listening to music on like Walkmans and CD players. So like I would have the CD, and the only way you could have a quote unquote playlist is if you burn the CD, and then put the CD in your car, and then that was your playlist. Like you know what I'm saying? Shuffle that or something.
Yeah, I remember burning CDs. That was when I was a little kid, and I remember my dad doing it. I didn't know what the hell he was doing, but he'd always come home with this like big stack of just blank CDs. Yeah, and just totally fill them up.
I would love doing that so much. But otherwise, I mean, I do. I guess it depends on my mood, but I do make playlists. But I kind of just always shuffle them. I don't really have like a way of listening to a playlist in order. I usually just throw a bunch of songs that I like into a playlist and listen to it. Otherwise, I'll listen to an album. If there's an album that I want to listen to from start to finish, I'll just put it on from start to finish. Otherwise, I'll just, I don't know. Songs that I've heard a lot, I like just shuffling them. I like being surprised when I listen to music.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of another question. I actually can't... Oh, there it is. Kind of also going down the audiophile route here. But what's your favourite physical music format?
Oh, man, this is really... I think I was scrolling through some questions, like, I think the other day when people were putting them in. I think I saw this one. I was
Yeah,
kinda
this was
thinking about that.
SR3323.
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of thinking about that because I did grow up like I did grow up with records, and also like my dad kind of taught me how to like play records and scratch them and stuff when I was a little kid. But really the form of media that was the most popular, I guess, when I was a kid was cassette more than record at that point. So it was like like cassette and CD. CD was becoming like a big thing. But so out of those three, I don't know. It's kind of hard. I mean, in terms of physical media, I guess I'd say, man, that's really hard to think about because I haven't listened to physical media in such a long time, and I know like that's like a thing that people are coming back to because it's retro. The day that CDs become a retro thing is the day I'm gonna check out.
Oh my god, I've got some news for you. My sister's like proper indie and all that, and she started getting really into cassettes, but really into CDs as well.
So funny.
Not that much into vinyls, weirdly.
That's funny. That's really crazy. Yeah, I mean, I like the way records sound, but for certain types of music, like I'm not in the camp that vinyls inherently sound better all the time. Not only do I not care, I don't think that's always true. Like I think that's maybe the case for like analog electronic music. I don't think that's always the case for every type of music. So it depends on the music I'm listening to, but I don't really care either way. Honestly, I mean, I don't know. I'll throw a CD in. I like it. I think CD sounds, I don't know, the same as if I plug my iPod or something in. I don't use iPod, I use Zune or something, or my phone. Always like the vibe of a cassette. So I guess tape is usually probably my favorite. I don't know. If I had to pick one, it'd probably be tape. I like the vibe of cassette. So.
Yeah. Just kind of out of interest, I don't know why that's reminded me of this, but I guess there's sort of a crossover with the whole kind of interest in Japanese culture and that sort of thing. And I might be wrong here, but were you ever into the whole like vaporwave thing? Like the whole kind of aesthetic that was going on there.
Well, vaporwave is so funny to me because I'm talking about cassette, right? I think I was talking about vaporwave with my friend Tristan the other day, and I was like, "Why does it feel like vaporwave is more of like a wish I was there kind of like nostalgia for something you didn't have thing versus as opposed to people who did live that." I don't know. It's interesting to me.
I think it's kind of how it's defined, isn't it?
I guess I don't know because I just haven't explored it that much, but that's what it always felt like to me. I was like, man, this is so funny. Like,
yeah, that was definitely me a few years ago because I had no idea what any of it was. Like, I've seen all these brands that I'd never even recognized, and as well living in the UK as well. Like, half of them never even fucking
like. I think
existed
it
here.
obviously started from people who were from that time, but I think in terms of the main like fan base of it, I feel like it comes from more people who probably thought it's like a cool. It's kind of like the Japanese city pop thing, It's like I think it's kind of similar in that way. Like most people who are into it were people who, were not even alive in the 80s. So it's like, I just think it's like for me, like vaporwave. I guess I never got into it, not because I didn't like it, but because I was like, yeah, this happened. But I don't have I have fond nostalgia for it. I do have nostalgia for, recording my favorite cartoons like on Fridays on VHS. Like I do have fond memories of doing that. But I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Also, let me know if you do want to dip at any point, because I'm aware that we're nearly like triple over time, but I am actually really enjoying
I mean,
this.
probably one or two is fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do a couple more.
Yeah.
Going back to jazz, Todd wants to know what's one song that you'd like to be a standard that isn't.
In jazz specifically.
I guess, yeah. Or maybe not.
Maybe
but just
not,
any
like,
song. Yeah.
Any song. Every Nintendo song from like the 80s and early 90s. Every Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 song. I mean, here's the thing. That's part of what my mission has been, right? Like I have the J Music Pocket Band as like an acoustic variant of the J Music Ensemble that's more video game based, and we have like a small video game reel book that I made that I'm gonna start doing a little more intensive, paying more attention to now, and just starting to put more tunes in it since I have a little more time. But yeah, I mean, freaking Super Mario Brothers 2 Overworld theme is basically like Take the A Train. or any of those. It's kind of like the same thing. A lot of these tunes are based on. I mean, freaking Super Mario World 1 athletic theme is rhythm changes. It's like Delfino Plaza is basically rhythm changes. A lot of these tunes are like based on these like old song forms, and they're sometimes doing jazz better than like like modern media like was American like what they think jazz is. And it's funny. Like there's so many tunes that we grew up on. These are modern standards. These are our standards. We grew up as kids with these video games, and so, we have a bunch of these songs that are in our popular lexicon, just like how Cole Porter, George Gershwin, and Jerome Kern, all of them were in our grandparents' repertoire. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the Rodgers and Hammerstein, Sound of Music. Like it's the same thing, but now it's freaking Mario and Zelda and Sonic. It's like those are our standards. So I say all of those tunes, if like for sure, like all of
them. Another question. This is a cool one, actually. I guess it kind of relates to the idea of flow state. But Zappaholic asks, what do you think about soloing or just playing in general? And they say, is it almost like a feeling of zen, or does it feel quite calculated?
I almost want to say neither, because it's not a combination of the two. I would say that I would say that the calculated probably happens more than the zen state does, just because it's just naturally how it is. But it's not calculated. Like it's never calculated. Like I don't have anything pre-planned out that I do. But I have things that I know work in my head. So when the opportunity strikes, I seize it, which is where the zen part comes in, right? That's why it's both. It's not like a vacuum where I just have, I know nothing, and then when I hear a chord, something comes out. There's no vacuum. It's like, I've been playing music for quite some time now. Like I'm going on 20 years of playing music now. Like in terms of actually playing it. If you count like elementary school recorder and stuff, I can go over 20, but I don't think that counts. Like I've been playing music seriously and studying it for. Yeah, actually no, it's been 20 as of like this coming fall. So like as I started playing when I was 8. So I've been studying music for about 20 years. So obviously there's things that I have that I know how to do at this point. And I've been studying jazz for the better half of 15 years. No, wait, probably longer than that. Yeah, for 17 years I've been studying jazz for the better half of that. So what was I gonna say? There are things that I know to do because I have kind of just stuff in the back of my head that I know is appropriate. I have stuff that I know to do, so I don't get caught up in trying to make the right decision. So the zen part, flow state, comes up when I think it's necessary to just play the music, and the calculated part is just, or like if there's any calculation at all, because I don't like the word calculated, but if that's a word that we're gonna use, then me figuring out what the right thing to play just comes from me making sure I stay on course when I play the thing that I play. Yeah. So if I start in the right place and I'm going, then it's a matter of just using my musical sense to make sure I don't fall on my face.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a combination of the two, or like a Venn diagram, I guess, is somewhere in the middle where they both meet up.
Getting them to know. I guess it's kind of like an author's favorite phrases or something, where it's like they're not kind of they're expressive, but in the I don't know what the word would be, but they're kind of in the ammunition box, ready to go.
Well, it's like in every. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's all I said.
Okay, well, it's like it's sort of like, in every type of art form or business, whatever, anything that requires skill, there's a certain amount of efficiency that has to be there, right? There's always some sort of efficiency, and so, it's not just this whole thing where people kind of not glorify, but they kind of romanticize music as like this. Oh, he's so whimsical. He just comes out of thin air. It's like it's so effortless. It's like, yeah, that's what it's gonna look like because we're good at it and we enjoy it. Like that part of it mostly comes from the fact that it feels good to get out what you play. Like dang, like that worked. I like it. Dang. You end up surprising yourself. Like I surprise myself all the time when I play something. I'm like, yo, that sounded pretty good, man. Yeah. Like I'll be playing, I'm just like, yeah, that was killing. Or like I play, I'm just like, I don't know about that one. I'm not gonna do that again. Like that's the risk you take when you play jazz. Yeah. Because it's not always gonna be right, and it's not always gonna be good. But as long as you don't beat yourself up about it, you can just have a good time and play. That's like the most important lesson I've learned. It's just that, like, okay, I know what, as long as I spend a considerable amount of time making sure I have a voice in my head when I play, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to, everything, that's a big thing about me, is that everything I do comes from wanting to sing. And I've been embracing that a lot more recently than I used to. Is that I really like singing. I want to play, like, all my favorite and most inspirational and influential people for my sound are singers, not just saxophone players. Like, saxophone players have helped me to get my technique together, but singers have given me something to work for. Singers have given me something to look forward to. You know, that's the big thing. Because I can play like a saxophone, which is fine. No one's going to fault you for playing like a saxophone. It's a saxophone. Play it like a saxophone. However, when you realize that the saxophone is kind of like a bastard instrument, a combination between like a freaking tuba and a clarinet or something, then you realize, what is the right way to play this thing? Like, why should I only be playing sax? So that's like the youngest instrument. It was like in the 1840s when the thing was like kind of invented.
It's super recent.
Yeah, it's like barely 180 years old, right? The instrument. So it's like compared to clarinet, which is hundreds of years old, trumpet, which is thousands of years old, because like a bugle, whatever, like, you know, drums, which is ages old. Like, you know, the clarinet, I mean, the saxophone is super new, and no one really knows how to play it. I still firmly believe no one really knows how to play this thing. We just have accepted that whatever way people playing right now is
the right way.
The right way. Like, we've just accepted that. But there's still so much you can do with this thing. And I think we're in a really exciting time now where people are starting to realize that, I think. So I feel like we just need to find more creative ways to express and to look for those expressions. So for me, I'm like, well, let me try to emulate things that aren't just a saxophone. Yeah. So I think I'm taking advantage of the really wide expressiveness, the wide range of expressions this instrument can have, and using that to play like a singer. There are a lot of techniques. Hold on real quick. I'm going to do something. So I got my horn right here. I just want to have it. So, for example, a very simple thing. We think to play D on saxophone, you know, is let's say D in the staff, right? Is 1 2 3 1 2 3 with the register key. Cool, that works. But what if you want to play like? What if you want to play like if you're in B flat concert, you want to play like a B flat concert, like kind of a blues run or a line that kind of goes like, you know, you want to do that. The D doesn't really work when it's closed. Yeah, it's like it's there, but you sound like a saxophone.
A little bit clunky, yeah.
You side D. So that's like an example of like just a very simple example of what I'm talking about. You're like, you know what I'm saying? It's a more vocal. I try to look for all the wide things that the instrument can do. And I studied with Joe Temperley too, and Joe Temperley was like, yeah, side C is the real C. And I was like, yeah, you freaking right. Because the middle fork C you're closing a hole, as opposed to side C where you're venting, you're opening up a hole. So it's like you got okay, but what about side C? Oh, now you got there's like something else there that you can do, you know? It's like you can do a little more than just the note. You can play other stuff. So like the journey I've been on, and the reason why like the approach to me playing has been different is because I'm always trying to think of things I can do like a singer. And how to get, because I love when I hear the woo woo woo. I'm like, oh, I want that. Like, how do I do that? You know, I'm just like, you know, like woo, that kind of cracking thing. Like, I want that kind of stuff because it's a little more interesting to me than just like that's if I'm playing something like, you know, just kind of like more electric. I probably will play more binary kind of, you know, more electric type of lines, you know. Like, cause I want to sound more like a keyboard or something. But if we swing it, I want to go on. Like, that's a guitar thing too. Doing like the double, like kind of like sliding into the note. Like I just try to think what all these kind of like different techniques I could do that are not just the saxophone. You know, I'm still practicing my scales. I'm doing all kinds of, but you know, I don't want to stop there only because it's not because I'm trying to maximize like, oh, everybody knows how to do this. I want to do this. Like, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I don't. I want to sing. And so for me, I'm looking at what can I do that won't like put me on Front Street because I can't sing to save my life. I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of a bunch of people. Unless I'm just by myself or whatever. What can I do to get to that level of kind of what can I do to get to that level of soulfulness and expression that a singer can do with my horn? And if you're into that, cool, you're into that. Not everybody has to be into that. Nobody is better or worse for being into it or not. That's just what I like. So I've spent a lot of time doing that. So I guess bouncing back to like the original question, I don't know how exactly I can relate that back, but it's all kind of related to kind of just like my approach to the instrument and like how I approach doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, just trying to keep it like really original, not taking what is currently being done as given.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. I was thinking there when you were talking, I saw a video like a long time back, and it kind of related to the newness of the instrument. And I was wondering how you felt, if you did feel in any kind of particular way about it. Do you think saxophone is kind of unfairly lacking in classical orchestral environment or context?
Do I think it's lacking? I think from a purely just for technical standpoint, I mean, yes, from face value, it is lacking, as in there's not enough of it. But I think the reason is because people haven't really figured out, again, like what to do with it. Like it's kind of just from the beginning, it was always seen as kind of like a devil's instrument. Like people hated Adolph Sax for making that. Like at least like the church did, and like classical musicians didn't understand what to do with the instrument. And the few that did want to explore it, there was not enough people who knew how to play it, like to really, get. There was no desired sound because no one knew what it was supposed to sound like yet. So I think like it actually took people like Coleman Hawkins and Sidney Bechet to go to Europe and kind of like teach them how to play their instrument, which is actually kind of really interesting, because they had the most virtuosic and dexterous approach to the instrument outside of it just being like a loud clarinet. They were like the only ones that were really taking it to like a different place. So everybody got kind of obsessed with that, and because of the place that jazz had in America, not necessarily in the world. It's funny, right? Because like the world loved jazz, but America was like, this is that Negro music. It's making our children become degenerates and blah blah blah. It's that's the America's history, right? But it was becoming associated with that, and also just people didn't know what to do with it. So I feel like there are only like a few classic. That's why like the classical saxophone rep is so small comparatively, and most of the saxophone rep is like more new. Like there's not a lot of old sax rep.
Yeah. So it's kind of even newer to the classical scene than it was.
Yeah. It's
it's not had the time
it's almost
to...
newer. Yeah. It's almost newer to classical than it is to jazz. But it's even older in marches because one of the
because that was what it was made for, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was, again, it's make an instrument that can move like a clarinet but can, yell like a trumpet. That's what they were looking for. So,
I had another question that came up, and it's kind of it's no longer relevant, but I still want to ask it. And this was going back to the whole idea of kind of Zen, and you were saying how music is portrayed or kind of maybe romanticized in modern media. And I was thinking that you'll definitely have seen this, I think, because I think it's John Batiste, isn't it, who's in it? But what did you think of Soul?
I actually have not watched it yet.
Have you not?
No, I have not watched it yet. There's a couple of reasons I haven't done that. I don't want to like kind of get into it here. But I was actually supposed to be in that movie.
Whoa!
I had 2 opportunities to be in that movie. But they both didn't work out, and it was But I haven't watched it yet. I probably will at some point, but I don't want to.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, no, I won't press you on that. Yeah,
I don't want John knowing about that. Because
Okay.
Maybe one more question at this.
Yeah, cool. All right, let me pick a good one. Okay, this one's a little bit out there. What book would you say has greatly influenced your life?
Maybe 2.
And this is Yi asking, just to credit.
Okay. Sorry, this is who?
This is Yi.
Okay. Probably two books. The first one, Kenny Werner's Effortless Mastery. That was I mean, even though I don't play like that anymore, it's kind of a book on basically how to accept and be open to like all types of music.
Yeah.
And just be free. It's really freaking good. It was kind of sweeping everybody when it came out. Like everyone was like freaking out about that book, and yeah, it really unlocked a lot in me when I was like graduating, not graduating, but like getting out of my 11th grade year, going into my senior year of high school, and then Mason Curry's Daily Rituals, which is a really ridiculous book that basically is a collection of a bunch of different interviews or stories about people's different artists and writers and dancers, whatever, throughout history and their daily lives. Like what their life would be. What is a typical day for this person? What is their like routine? It's a book basically trying to highlight like what the lives of these people were like. So you can go all the way from freaking Beethoven, like to Louis Armstrong, to freaking Murakami, to Ravel, to freaking Kierkegaard, freaking like it was just actually like kind of hilarious. Like there's so many different people. I think who else was in there? There were a couple of other authors and stuff too, but yeah, it's a really cool book. I learned a lot from it, and I think it's really cool. Glenn Gould is in there too, actually, which is kind of funny. So like, yeah, it basically showed you like, okay, this person got up at like 5 a.m. to just walk or something, and then they would eat breakfast, and then they would like compose from like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then they would teach from 10 to 12, take another lunch break or whatever, and then teach again, then compose more. Or some people, you know, I don't know. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it, called Daily Rituals. Those two books are really cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for leaving us with those two suggestions. I want to say a massive thank you again as well for going. I think it's been, 2.25 hours now? So thank you for going so much overtime. I enjoyed every second
I had a lot
of
of
that.
fun, man.
Yeah, same. I hope everyone else did as well. And I want to say thank you as well for being such a brilliant speaker and taking every question in so many sort of different directions, which I don't think anyone expected they would go. So again, thank you for that. It's been a really good experience. This has been my first time hosting one of these sorts of things as well. So I want to say I'm really grateful that you were kind of the first person I had the honour of bringing to the server. So yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully chat to you again soon.
Sorry?
And hopefully chat to you again soon. At some point.
Absolutely.
In some context.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.